And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Friday, September 23rd. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Oddshopper, and we've got 12 games to break down for today. Interesting slate, seeing some things in the ownership that I definitely want to talk about. I haven't talked about this slate yet. Adam has earlier today, so I'll be able to pick his brain on some of this stuff. Before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how's your Friday? You ready to close out this week?
Yeah, I wish there was MMA tomorrow. I'd be a lot more excited about the weekend, but yeah, excited to talk about this slate and be done.
Have you looked at the MMA card for next Saturday?
I have not.
There are 6 fights. I don't know if they're going to add more. I don't know how this is going to work. There are 6 fights.
All right, well, hopefully they add like 10 or 8 or whatever.
I was asked about an hour ago or so if I could host the MMA strategy show next Thursday. And I was like, yeah, that'll work. That's fine. I started looking at the card. I was like,
Where are the rest of them?
I mean, like, that's not even worth covering.
No, like
I won't play that.
No.
I don't like, obviously it doesn't matter, just build your lineups a little bit differently and move forward. But like, that's less interesting to me.
Well, I mean, like, it just gets to the point where, like, how can you not have a bunch of dupes? Like, there's only so much you can do.
Well, at that point, you are stacking.
Fights,
Every fight becomes stackable at that point in time.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not as bad as it seems. It's better than a normal televised card where it's 5 and, like, the second version, but it's still shit. I assume they're going to add some fights.
I would think
I don't know how that works. How do you add a fight 9 days out?
Right. Did you see Kevin Holland retired?
He didn't really retire.
I mean, yeah, I was going to ask, that was my follow-up, was do you think he actually retired?
No. Chael's already put out a video saying Kevin Holland did not retire. So it didn't take long. I'm ready for like another good UFC card, but we've got a little bit to go before we get to that, because we get to look at Mackenzie Dern, which is fun. And then the next 2 cards that exist are not great. I mean, there's next week's card, October 1st. Then there's another week off, and then it's October 15th, a card that only has 4 fights attached to it at this point in time. It takes till October 22nd before we get to the Oliveira Islam fight and Sterling Dillashaw. I can't wait for that card. That's going to be, I better be able to watch on October 22nd.
That sounds great. Glad to know my sister won't be getting married during it this time.
Yeah. Peter Yan O'Malley, that card is no joke in terms of fun.
O'Malley's going to get his ass kicked.
I would imagine, yeah. I would guess. I love Peter Yan as a fighter and think he should still be the champ, but it's awesome if O'Malley wins because he's just going to talk so much shit. And
fun. And I guess because my thinking was that it'll be annoying if he wins because I don't think he's that good, but if he wins, maybe he is that good.
I mean, he's an exceptional striker. That's
sure.
For sure. I don't know if he could deal with the power of Peter Yan. We're certainly going to find out. Either way, I want to watch it.
Yeah, but yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I'll say I feel like I haven't seen a UFC card in a while because I guess I watched last week, but I missed the week before that.
Yeah.
There isn't one tomorrow.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Xavier Ford says O'Malley going to get washed. Yeah, I assume so too. But it'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, if he wins, my opinion of him will drastically change.
I mean, I think he's legitimately good. I just don't know if he's top of the food chain good.
Right. I think he's good. I also realize that he just doesn't fight anybody, and when he does, it doesn't really go well.
Kinda. I don't know how true that is. I think you're shorting him a little bit.
It's been fluky stuff, but it's also certainly not any level of dominance.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, the Thomas Almeida fight that he had after he fought Chito Vera, that was a real fight at the time. It looks a little bit worse for Almeida now. And knocking out Eddie Wineland in 2020 wasn't exactly a big one. This is a big test. It'll be fun. I'd rather talk MMA right now than MLB, but I think we got to talk MLB. Yeah. 12 games. We got a Coors game with a monster total on the Padres, so that'll be interesting to talk about. We got Ohtani on the bump today, But we're going to kick it off. Phillies and Braves. 4-run implied total for the Phillies, 3.1 for the Braves. Aaron Nola and Jake Odorizzi. A tale of two different ownerships here. 43% going to Aaron Nola. He is 9,300. Odorizzi unowned at 6,100. Top pitcher tool probably says that he's slightly under-owned at that mark. You probably shouldn't be rostering Jake Odorizzi today. You absolutely should be rostering Aaron Nola. Maybe a little bit over-owned in this spot, but still looks good.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, the ownership coming into Nola certainly is pretty aggressive at 43%, but at the same time, he's $9,300. He has the fifth highest strikeout percentage on the slate, fourth highest if you don't count Andrew Heaney. 28.5% strikeout percentage for Nola, 2.84 xFIP. He's really good. I was joking on the show this morning, and I know I've said it to you. I feel like I roster him every slate, whether he's popular or not, and he never actually comes through for me. So I don't know exactly when he piles these really good numbers up, but apparently he's good. So yeah, it's not a great matchup against Atlanta, but there are some strikeouts here. It is cool on the East Coast today as well, so Philadelphia should play a bit more fair than it normally does. There's no Ronald Acuna in the lineup, so that's nice. Just overall sets up as a pretty nice spot for Nola at a price tag that is a little bit less expensive than it should be.
I got to basically neutral on him. I think the ownership is a little too high, but the price tag sort of just making that work anyway. So I have about 40% of Nola right now. That's what we're showing in our ownership projections. How are you feeling about the Phillies bats here? 14th in top stack, 11th in ownership. Steamer gives a little bit of respect to Odorizzi, but I'm still getting to the Phillies. 9% aggregate ownership for me, so quite a bit above the field.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of interested just because they're not pulling much ownership at 3%. But Odorizzi's another pitcher that has kind of done that weird thing where he doesn't really get strikeouts anymore, but he also stopped giving up power, basically. 144 expected ISO to righties, 131 to lefties, only striking out 20% of righties and 17.5% of lefties. But doing a better job limiting that power this year. And then again, it's like 60 degrees in Philadelphia, so ball's not going to carry quite as much. That's not to say, you can't get to a $5,100 Schwarber or $5,500 Harper. The top of the order is pretty expensive, but then it gets cheap as you go down towards the bottom. So I think given the lack of ownership, they look okay. And one other sort of overarching theme for this slate is that you have the Coors game, and then you have either favorable pitcher sparks, pretty good pitchers, both. There's not a lot of offenses I really like outside of Coors Field, so that makes it a little bit easier to just roll the dice on a team like Philadelphia as well, because I don't think the opportunity cost to getting to them is that high, and the teams that you certainly do like better are also getting a lot more ownership.
Yeah, I like where I'm at here with Philly. 10% Schwarber, 10% Real Muto, nobody above that mark, but still getting to 9% in the aggregate. It's basically just flat, straight down the board. They're pretty easy to stack up. Alec Boehm, not exactly like a power hitter, but does have the MPE. If I'm going to take a stand somewhere, I don't mind going a little bit north on Philly, even up against these Braves. I don't see a scenario where we want to get to Atlanta, though.
Yeah, not really. I mean, Nola getting 40% ownership against a good Atlanta offense is nice, but no Acuna certainly makes it a little bit weaker. And they're not really cheap either. I mean, Michael Harris gets the lineup bump up to second, but he's also suddenly $5,200. Swanson's expensive. Riley's expensive. You have two catchers in the top six, which on DraftKings is a little bit of a problem. Olson's 4,800, which is whatever. I don't think it's a very appealing spot to get to Atlanta.
I mean, when you're the 18th best stack in top stack out of 24, and you're also dead last in value, you're basically never going to show up in anything unless you try to make it happen. And that's usually not a recipe for success.
Yeah. I mean, the one caveat I will throw in there is, they're 18th or whatever in top stack, but they're at 2.2%. The eighth highest team is at 3.5%. So, it's not. It kind of goes back to what I was just saying about Philadelphia. It's very, very top heavy in terms of top stack percentage, but to your point, they're also not cheap.
There's obviously no cash options here outside of Aaron Nola, who I assume is just a cash lock.
Yeah, I just crunched.
I assume he's in every one of them.
Yeah, he is in 95 of the 100 that I crunched.
There you go. So yeah, if you're playing cash, Aaron Nola, probably a guy you're going to be looking at today. Otherwise, if you're getting something in this game as a cash play, that's probably the wrong answer.
Yeah, nothing else from this game showing up for me, at all. Brandon Marsh made it into 2 of 100.
Yeah. It's sometimes it feels like randomness is still on when some of these guys show up. But $2,100 outfielder. All right. Let's go to your Orioles. 3.5 run implied total there, 4.1 for the Astros. Dean Kramer and Jose Urquidy, both guys showing up very similarly in our top pitchers tool. Both guys showing up very similarly in our ownership in that they are unowned. Any appeal here? I've got Urquidy a little bit higher than we do, so maybe a tad under-owned, but also I don't really have any interest in either guy.
Yeah, I don't have much interest in either guy either. They're not getting ownership, which is nice, but I think that there's enough pivots that I would get to before I get to a lot of Urquidy as well. Not a great strikeout pitcher. I do like this park for him. It kind of is like I was saying with Kyle Bradish in Houston yesterday. Not that I expected Bradish to do what he did yesterday, and not that I'm expecting Urquidy to repeat that. But you have pitchers that struggle with right-handed power and have actually been pretty good at limiting power to lefties. Urquidy this year, 218 expected ISO to righties, only 159 to lefties, 295 expected WOBA to lefties, compared to 357 to righties. For one, there's not many right-handed bats in the Orioles lineup. You have Mountcastle, you have Aguilar, you have Hayes, and then you have Mateo hitting ninth. But also this park just does such a good job of limiting right-handed power. It's more favorable for left-handed power, but Urquidy's just done a better job against them. So not to say that guys like Mullins, Rutschman, Santander, Henderson can't do damage against Urquidy, but that hasn't really been where he has struggled this year. So I do think that sets up well for him, but still not a great strikeout pitcher, and I think still pretty difficult to want to get to him. On the other side, Kramer going against Houston, I don't think he's a bad pitcher. I don't think he's great. I think he's kind of just middle of the road for the season, a 17.5% strikeout percentage, 4.3 xFIP. But going up against this Houston team, not a spot I really want to get to, even if it is a little bit of a watered down lineup with no Kyle Tucker.
Let's talk about bats. I guess we got to start with the Astros. They are 5th in top stack, 5% likelihood, 10th in ownership at 3% likelihood. Do you see yourself wanting to get to these Astro bats? I know it's not really the best spot to get them.
Yeah, it's not a great spot. It is pretty chilly in Baltimore too. It's around 60 degrees today. But it's the same kind of thing as I was saying with Philadelphia. Like, there's just not a lot of ownership coming to Houston. There's not a lot of opportunity cost amongst offenses. I do wish Kyle Tucker were in this lineup, but Kramer's done a better job limiting left-handed power this year. 130 expected ISO, 312 expected WOBA, compared to 167 expected ISO to righties. You have a lot of right-handed bats here. Again, the park, it's basically Camden Yards is like the exact opposite of where Houston plays, and Houston's lineup is basically built for having a 315-foot wall in left field, and then now you get them in Baltimore where it's the exact opposite. So there is a lot of power here, but they are also expensive, and they are also hitting in a park that kind of just kills righty power now.
Yeah, I didn't really get here. 2% to the Astros, nobody more than 3%, and that's Altuve. To me, they're filler. And then on the opposite side for the Orioles, I don't exactly have a ton of interest either. 20th in top stack, 20th in ownership. They are unowned, which is nice. I do have 3%. So in theory, I'm over the field, but not by anything that means that I should be like advocating for them.
Yeah, I think they might be a little bit easier to get to than Houston, but
yeah,
the top of the order is not cheap either. Mullins and Rutschman are 5K or higher. But after that, it drops off a bit. I do like Mountcastle a bit at 4,300. Gunnar Henderson hitting 5th, third base shortstop looks like a pretty solid value. You have Aguilar in the lineup. I guess Baltimore playing the reverse splits thing as well, giving him the start. So it's an okay spot, I think, but yeah, not one that I expect to go crazy on. And I don't remember the exact quote, but I did like Dusty Baker's take. He was asked about the new dimensions at Camden Yards, and he said something like it went from being a bandbox to being turned into Yosemite.
Fair enough. I can't believe he's the manager of a baseball team.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Just not put him out to pasture. Oh man. So in the grand scheme of things, this is a nothing game, right? This is like a full, basically like a full
yes,
cross-up.
but there's also a lot of those. So the way I think about it is like, I don't have a ton of interest in either of these offenses, but I also wouldn't be surprised if I end up getting over the field on one or both, just because I don't really have strong preferences on most teams here. But it's kind of just like, I assume I'm not just jamming in Coors with everybody else, so I'm going to be getting somewhere. But they're kind of just nothing really stands out.
Okay. Yeah, like I guess I just meant like for the most part, this seems like a game that's going to be low in hitting, low in pitching. It could pop, but like we're going to talk about a couple of teams that are also going to look like this that are popping for me. For this one, I'm hoping it's just a cross off.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, my point's like I'm not as confident that this one's a cross off as I will be some others.
There we go. I don't think this next one's a cross off, at least not for me. 4.5 run implied total for the Yankees, 3 for the Red Sox. Garrett Cole and Dick Mountain going in this one. 10,500 for Cole. He is 48% owned, the number one ownership guy on the slate at pitcher. Rich Hill, on the other hand, unowned at 6,300. I can't imagine wanting to get to Rich Hill here against the Yankees. I do imagine wanting to get to Garrett Cole, and I am right around the field here, but still a very tough matchup.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at the ownership coming into Cole this morning. And still, I mean, it's high. There are pivots there. It's not a great matchup against Boston, but I am high on him as well. Like him and Nola, I think, are the two cash pitchers. I have Cole being optimal around 30% of the time. So going a little bit over owned, but also still leading the way in chances of being optimal. It's not a great matchup against Boston, but it is a really good pitcher. The Red Sox do have a 2.9 implied run total. You have Kike Hernandez leading off for some reason. I assume now he's going to hit 2 home runs just because I mentioned his name, but he's been bad this year. I don't know why he's leading off here. So you have him instead of Pham. You have Reese McGuire, who sucks at the bottom of the order. It's not the best Boston lineup that they could have. No Xander Bogaerts in the lineup either. So it does just set up well for Cole, who's probably a little bit less expensive than he should be.
Aaron Judge getting one off of Rich Hill.
Yeah.
I think that might be a safe bet. Yeah, so I have Cole rather a little bit higher in my top pitchers tool, but still, like, I'm right around the field. We have one other guy that I'm going to talk about that I like a little bit more than that one that I like a little bit less. No advocation for Rich Hill. So let's talk Yankees bats. 7th in top stack, 12th in value, 6th in ownership. This is one spot that I am getting to over the Orioles, over the Astros. I'm getting to a lot of the New York Yankees. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the Yankees here too. I'm hoping that ownership stays around where it is or is accurate. 6% projected ownership, but once again, also keep in mind that's a little bit misleading because you have 18% going to Aaron Judge. Gleyber Torres is next at 7.5%, and Judge fully deserves that ownership. So it's not even a case where it's just like, oh yeah, just stack the Yankees without Judge. They're low enough owned that you can just stack them with Judge and be perfectly fine as well. Rich Hill, just not a particularly good pitcher at this point in his career. 184 expected ISO to righties, only an 18.8% strikeout percentage. He has been very good against lefties, but that doesn't really matter. You don't even have Anthony Rizzo in this lineup, so nothing but right-handed bats. Somebody's probably getting pinch hit for at some point with Rizzo, but it's probably going to be one of those guys towards the bottom of the order. So not overly concerned about that. I think it sets up as a really good spot for the Yankees.
Yeah, I'm getting them in everything. They're just so cost efficient at the bottom. Scares me a little bit that we could lose a guy or two because of Rich Hill on the opposite side, but I think there's just a lot of upside here. I love this park for power, so I'm going to take that shot. I'm not going to take a shot on the Red Sox, however.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough sell for me. I mean, Devers, Verdugo, Casas, whatever, if you happen to get there, but I don't think that's going to be where I'm at.
I got one share of Kike. That's it. Not a single other Boston Red Sox bat anywhere to be found.
Cole is still doing the thing where he gives up home runs, particularly to left-handed hitters. 196 expected ISO this year. Only a 284 expected WOBA. It's just a matter of like he makes enough mistakes that get crushed that it drives up that power number, but he's still good overall. He's striking out 35.5% of them. 30% strikeout percentage against righties. 141 expected ISO. 279 expected WOBA. So yeah, I mean, you're not expecting the Red Sox to have success. You kind of know the Garrett Cole MO at this point for most of his career has just been he will give up home runs occasionally. So, if it's kind of like Max Scherzer has been for a lot of his career where you could target him with like power left-handed bats if you really wanted to, but it's on a 12-game slate, probably a little off the board for me.
Seems unnecessary. Anything else you want to touch on in this game?
No.
Alrighty, well, this is pretty easy. Schedule for the rest of the day. It's a Friday, so we've got MLB Live Before Lock coming up next at 6 p.m., and then we are done for the night. Plenty of content on our channel across this one, our betting channels. It's all out there. Fantasy football channel. We've got so much content that you guys could take in. So watch some of the stuff that isn't totally live. Catch up on some of the NFL stuff that's out there. free tool for today. If you're watching this show, I think you're going to be a little bit interested that the MLB Top Stacks tool is free. We're going to talk about it throughout the show, but if you want to follow along with it, you can browse directly to stokastic.com and check it out. Rays and Jays, 3.9 run implied total for the Rays, 3.4 for the Blue Jays, Jeffrey Springs and Mitch White. Another one where basically both pitchers aren't getting any ownership, 3% to Springs, none to Mitch White. Seems about right to me. I don't really want to get to either guy because I think both offenses are really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Blue Jays offense certainly better than the Tampa Bay offense, but I do have some tournament interest in Jeffrey Springs. Okay. He is in a good pitcher's park. He has a 26.1% strikeout percentage this year, and he's been lights out against right-handed bats in particular. He has a changeup. He's thrown 43% of the time to righties. It's induced a 22% swinging strike percentage. Overall, he has struck out 28.5% of righties with a 264 expected WOBA this year. You have an entirely right-handed lineup with the exception of Raimel Tapia hitting 7th. Obviously, they're very, very good righties, and I'm not trying to set this up as like Jeffrey Springs is in a good spot, but he is in a good pitcher's park. He does certainly have that upside. And on a slate where I think a lot of the hitters that I like are going to be popular, I think Springs works as a pivot away from like Giolito, who's getting 12 times the ownership, or even at $900 or $1,100 less from Nola, who's getting like 15 times the ownership. I think Springs at least gives you a really high ceiling in tournaments if you do need to offset some ownership.
I don't have anything to really add here. A little bit under-owned, sure. Like the stuff, just probably not my spot. This is another game that I don't feel as good about a cross-off here because I think both teams are slightly better. I don't know. This is pretty similar to Orioles Astros, honestly. It's the same sort of park. It's the same sort of offenses in the grand scheme of things. It's just two teams that I'm not really getting to, 13th and 17th in top stack. But we're actually getting ownership going to Tampa. They are 5th in aggregate ownership, 6% overall, which I think is much ado about nothing. Nobody's above 10. So like they're not exactly chalky. They are ranked relatively high, but it's basically because there's a lot of ownership going to one specific spot. So their rank is a lot higher than what it actually shows.
Yeah. And for me, where I am factoring in value and MPE and all of that, I have their ownership being pretty much correct. I have them with a 6% chance of being the top stack, 6% projected ownership. So when you factor all that in, I don't really think they're going over owned like the top stack tool shows. And to your point, it's not like you're getting worrisome ownership anyway. Jonathan Aranda leading off first base, second base, 2,600. Ramirez hitting second, has multi-position eligibility as well. Wander Franco's pretty cheap. Arozarena is really the only expensive guy in this lineup. Mitch White has done a pretty good job limiting power this year. 105 expected ISO to lefties and 135 to righties. But it just goes back to most spots on this slate have pretty strong negatives from a hitting standpoint because the weather is cool in so many places, because you do just happen to have a lot of pitchers parks on this slate and solid enough pitching. One other thing kind of in that same vein, Tropicana is obviously a negative park to hit in no matter what, but I don't think it's quite as big a deal on slates like this when you don't have 95 degrees in every outdoor game. When it's 60 degrees pretty much everywhere that people are playing outside, it's still, I think it just kind of evens the playing field a little bit.
That's a fair point. What about the Blue Jays on the opposite side? A lot of power in this lineup in comparison to Tampa, but at the same time, they get Jeffrey Springs, a better pitcher. So do you see yourself getting to Toronto 17th in top stack odds? Kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of power there. I mentioned it before. Springs has been just lights out against right-handed bats, but these are a bunch of above-average hitters. I think they're going under-owned, projected for around 1% ownership. I have them with about a 4% chance of being the top stack. So, and that's, including the fact that they're expensive. So I do think Toronto is a pretty solid stack in tournaments, not because I think they come through all that often against Springs, but just because when they do, there's so much power here at essentially no ownership.
Do you like the Blue Jays more than the Astros?
Where are the Astros? I think they're kind of similar. I have Houston a little bit ahead of them in top stack, but also getting, like 3 times the ownership.
Okay.
So I guess I like Toronto a little better just because they're kind of the same to me and getting less ownership.
Anything else you want to touch on in this game?
Nope.
Rangers and Guardians, 3.8 run implied total for the Rangers, 3.6 for the Guardians. John Gray and Cody Morris going for Cleveland. No ownership going to Gray at 8,800. Terrible strikeout matchup. Morris is getting 4% ownership, at 5,400. Do you like him as a value option today? Do you need to go that far down?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the ownership's pretty much where it should be. He showed up like 5% of the time for me, which kind of just suggests that you don't need to go that far down because I have him projected pretty well. We have him, at 13.8 points. I have him at 13.5. He's shown really good strikeout stuff in the minors. Who knows if that really carries over? Greg and I were talking about it this morning. There's not much of a sample size on this guy in the minors. I'm just assuming he's been hurt throughout a lot of his career and then obviously lost the COVID year as well. But what we do have from him in the minors is really good strikeout stuff. He projects to be a quality strikeout guy in the majors as well. And he's coming off of a start where he went 6 innings. So we're not talking about the same guy that was giving you 2 or 3 innings to open games when he first came up to Cleveland. But it is a relatively difficult matchup against Texas. And this is a slate that just has plenty of good pitching on it. So I don't think it's totally necessary to get there. But if you are paying down, I think Morris is certainly one of the pay down options.
Yeah, I didn't really get to much. I have like 3%, but he does look pretty good. Obviously a good value option. I just don't know how much I'm going to be getting to the bottom end, but I have him at 14.1 fantasy points. So like I'm in the same boat as the site, same boat as you. Like he looks pretty good on the surface. I just don't know if it matters. And I don't know how deep he's going either. So that there's also
that. He did go 6 innings last start.
Okay. John Gray?
No, I do expect him to be limited here. He's 8,800, so he's not really that cheap. Really difficult strikeout matchup, like you said. He's made 2 starts since coming back from the injured list. He's thrown 45 and 67 pitches. I would guess you're getting 80 to 85 here. And just given the price, given all of the alternatives on the slate, given the matchup, it just seems like you're walking a very, very, very thin line trying to get John Gray to be one of the best pitchers on the slate.
How are you feeling about Rangers bats here? 16th in top stack, but 10th in ownership at 3%. So nothing really crazy. Do you like trying to target against Cody Morris?
I think they're going a little under-owned, but nothing that really stands out. We do clearly have a limited sample on Morris in the majors. He's only thrown 121 pitches to lefties, but he has gotten absolutely destroyed by them. 334 expected ISO, 405 expected WOBA. Again, like just based on how high those numbers are, they pretty much have to come down at least somewhat. And you're drawing, you're reading into 120 total pitches. But I mention it just because you do have Corey Seager in this lineup. You also have Nate Lowe hitting third. So both of those guys would look good regardless, but that makes me think that, maybe there's a chance that it's even a little bit better spot for them. Josh Young's hitting fifth. He's 2,300. That's still just a mispricing for his talent level. So some interest in Texas, but kind of in just the same sense that I have some interest in a lot of teams on this slate that I don't really like, but that aren't getting a ton of ownership.
Okay. What about the opposite side of this one, the Cleveland side? 11th in our top stack tool at 3.3%. Basically unowned, 1.5%, 14th, but that's basically nothing here. 4% going to Jose Ramirez means the Indians aren't owned.
Yeah, I think they're kind of below even a lot of these other teams that I'm like sort of interested in. Gray is someone I think I'm not going to get to in DFS, but he's still a good pitcher. And if he's giving you 80 pitches, you're still probably talking 5, maybe 6 innings. And he's only allowed a 125 expected ISO to lefties, 134 to righties. They just look like a pretty unappealing stack to me.
Yeah, I got a little bit more of the range. I got to 4% of the Rangers. Again, like not worth talking about. It's not a stand that I'm making, but I did get to a little bit more Texas than I did Cleveland, but I don't really have much interest in any side of this. I honestly think Cody Morris might be the best part of this entire game, but just not all that necessary.
Yeah, I have a just like a dummy crunch running right now. So in a couple of minutes, I'll have at least some idea of where I would get if the slate started right now, but okay. I don't think I'm getting to much of either of them.
432 concurrent viewers, just 58 likes. That feels disrespectful to myself and Adam. So I think you guys should hit that thumbs up. No reason we can't get up to 100 right now. So help us out. Hit that thumbs up. It'll be nice if you do. Let's go White Sox and Tigers. God, another game that I'm just not getting to. But we do have one talking.
It's the entire slate.
We have one talking point here, though. 4.1 run implied total for the White Sox, 3.2 for the Tigers. Lucas Giolito and Eduardo Rodriguez. Giolito, 7,700. Eduardo Rodriguez, 7K, unowned. Giolito, slightly more than unowned. 38% ownership on Giolito right now. Do I have him projected better than all of the guys around him? I absolutely do. Does he grade out well in top pitchers? Absolutely not in comparison to his ownership. What are you doing with Giolito? Because the matchup's great.
Yeah, the matchup's great, and it goes back to what we've been talking about with him a lot recently. You just have to kind of keep in mind that you're not comparing Lucas Giolito to previous versions of Lucas Giolito because he's $7,700. You're not going into this saying, oh, he's $9,500. The matchup's good. Maybe he can recapture what he used to be able to do. He's priced for what he's been this season. He has a 25.3% strikeout percentage. 4.16 FIP is nearly a full run lower than his ERA. 3.65 xFIP is like a run and a half lower. He's had some power issues, but you've got a really good matchup against the Tigers. I'm fine playing Giolito here. He's kind of similar to me. Like, I think Garrett Cole, Aaron Nola, and Giolito are similar at their respective price points in that they're clearly the best projected options in their price ranges. They should be the most popular guys. I think they're all going a little bit over-owned if you're just looking at their chances of being optimal versus their ownership. But it's also a combination of players in your lineup, and you're not just avoiding every player that's going over-owned. So he fits nicely into lineups where I'm saving some ownership on bats and I need to pay down to Giolito. In lineups where, maybe I have Coors Field and I don't have the luxury of rostering a 30% owned Giolito, then that's where I think you can use somebody like Jeffrey Springs.
I'm pretty light on Giolito, about half the field. I'm getting to a pitcher in the next game a little bit more. We'll talk about that in a bit. But I totally get why he's getting the ownership. I mean, I got him 2 points clear of anybody even close to him. And I mean, miles ahead of everybody below him. So
yeah, the only pitchers I have him projected less than on this slate are Cole, Nola, Ohtani, and Rodon.
Cole, Nola, Ohtani, and Rodon. Okay, so I have one more ahead of him.
Bassett.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he's next, but I have him behind Giolito.
Yeah, I've got Bassett next, but everything else, I'm with you. I do have him sixth, and 7,700 doesn't look like 10-5, 10-8, 93, 95, and 10-3. So Trust me, I get it. Is he just not as interesting for a cash game because you can just get more raw points elsewhere?
Yeah, I think that's all it is. Like, if you needed to get to Giolito in cash, I think he is the third option. Like, if I play, I wouldn't expect anybody good to be playing a pitcher that is not named Cole, Nola, or Giolito in cash, just because, again, I think they just clearly stand out as the top projected guys in their price ranges. But I just think that the pricing is weak enough in Coors that you probably don't need to get down to Giolito. That combined with there's just not that many offenses in good spots today. So, like, a lot of the guys that you would normally want to pay up for, it's just like, okay, do I really need that bat instead of the value bat that lets me get there in Nola?
Right. I think we're on the same page there. Let's talk bats in this one. Not a lot to talk about. I'm going to start actually with the Tigers against Giolito. They're 20th in top stack, which is very unappealing, but they are second in value at 12%, and they're basically unowned at 2.5%. Is there value in going to the Tigers today on the opposite side of that Giolito ownership if you really are looking for value with your Ohtani, Cole, Nola type stacks where you're paying up for two pitchers?
I mean, I don't hate it since Giolito is getting some ownership and he has had those power issues this year. But he has only allowed a 139 expected ISO and a 124 actual ISO to lefties. It's been righties that have actually really taken advantage of him with a 247 actual ISO and a 171 expected ISO. And from a right-handed power standpoint, I mean, you have Javi Baez, you have Haas, you supposedly have Torkelson, but that's just been completely non-existent so far in his career. But like the hitters that I really like getting to here are Green and Carpenter, but they're on the wrong side of the split as far as what Giolito has struggled with this year. So, sure, you can make the case for like a Green, Baez, Carpenter, Haas, Torkelson stack. There's certainly the potential for that to pay off really well when it works because you are just jumping 30% of the field. But it's still the Tigers. They have a 3 implied run total. It's a 12-game slate. I don't think I'll get to much. Even with the value, I have them basically owned where they should be. 2.5% ownership, 3% chance of being the top stack for me.
Yeah, I didn't get to much, but I do like them on the surface just because of the Giolito ownership. It stands out at least a little bit because I think everybody looks so awful for this entire slate that if I'm going to do it, and they fit very well with what you would need to do if you are fading Giolito. Like you're naturally, if you don't have Giolito in the lineup, you're probably getting to multiple pay up pitchers, at which point you then do need a team like the Tigers. They're just unappealing.
Yeah. So I just loaded in. I had just crunched a bunch of 5-man stacks and put them in to see kind of get me at least some idea of what it would be looking like for me right now. So Detroit, I got like 2%, so basically around the field. Giolito, I got like 21%, so a little bit under the field there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm at 15 on Giolito right now, but we'll see where that actually ends up as we get closer to lock.
To go back to what we talked
ahead.
about before, I'm actually not getting to a lot of the Yankees, which I'm not thrilled with.
Okay.
Getting to more Tampa Bay than Toronto.
Let me guess, you're getting to the Orioles?
6%, so yeah.
Oh, okay. More than I was expecting you to say, at least.
Yeah.
White Sox bats here, 10th in top stack, 16th in ownership, probably showing up maybe a hair under owned, but again, I don't think they look great. Steamer kind of likes Erod. This it's just another spot I don't really care for.
Yeah, I'm not getting much of either side. I don't have any Rodriguez. I get the argument you could make where it's just like this guy's been good for a long time. He hasn't been good this year, but like prior to this year, you have a pretty long track record of him being a good pitcher, but only a 19% strikeout percentage against righties this year, 151 expected ISO. I'm getting like 3% of the White Sox. I'm getting no Erod. I just kind of don't have much interest here. This is another game where, it's a favorable hitter's park, but it's also 60 degrees, so I'm not going to play the way that it has for most of the year.
Yeah, I'm just not here again. This is just a weird slate. Anything else? White Sox or Tigers?
Nope.
All right, guys, this is the part of the show where 1, you guys hit the like button and continue to make that number climb. And then 2, I talk a little bit about Oddshopper, presenting sponsor of this show. It's great for multiple things. 1, if you're in a legal state and you're able to bet on sports, you want to be able to shop around for lines and have additional information in front of you. You can do that at Oddshopper so that you don't miss out on the best number that you could possibly find. That right there is just a simple explanation for why you should use it. If you're interested on the player prop side, this is the best feature of Oddshopper, except for the fact that it's free. That's probably the best feature. The second best feature is knowing that we're going to give you the expected ROI on these props, the expected win rate on these props. And again, free. So Eric Haas to hit a home run is sitting here on Oddshopper right now, letting you know that the expected ROI on that bet is 31%. Patrick Wisdom to hit a home run today, expected ROI 26%. Something Montero for the Rockies, 25%. Those letters are tough. El Haris, I don't know, man. It doesn't matter. Just click the bet now button and go directly to it if you want, and take these bets that we are giving to you guys for no cost whatsoever. It's all right here if you need it. If you can't bet, I think looking at player props and lines are helpful for just simply understanding where the best offenses are going to be. If you're trying to break any ties between two separate hitters, use some player props. Try to get an idea of where the market is pointing for potential home runs, because we're being honest, if you want to win a GPP, you're probably looking to get a home run. Try to piece those pieces together. Piece those pieces. Terrible sentence.
Well said.
Yeah, I'm a wordsmith. Just use Oddshopper. That's my sales pitch. It costs you nothing other than an email address, and we have so much information on the site for nothing. That's the good part. God, I'm a moron sometimes. Most times. Twins and Angels. 3-run implied total for the Twins, 3.7 for the Angels. Louis Varland going for Minnesota. Shohei Ohtani on the hill for the Angels. Ohtani is the most expensive pitcher on today's slate at 10,800. We're going to just go ahead and skip Varland for right now. Does the ownership to Shohei Ohtani surprise you?
A little bit, just because he is really good. Like, you can make a strong case that he's the best pitcher in terms of talent. He's got the best non-Andrew Heaney strikeout percentage at 33.1%. 2.64 xFIP is better than every other pitcher on the slate. The matchup's not great against Minnesota, but it's not like Garrett Cole's matchup against the Red Sox is great either. So It surprises me a little bit, but at the same time, I have him projected quite a bit behind Cole. I have him projected behind Nola. I have him slightly behind Carlos Rodon, and he is the most expensive. So
Ooh.
that makes sense to me as well. I'm getting around the field right now, but yeah, I kind of just in some senses I think the ownership's too low, and others I think it kind of just makes sense.
I have a different projection on Ohtani than you do. I'm getting aggressively to a 12.5% owned Ohtani. I have him ahead of Nola. I have him well ahead of Rodon. I have him second behind Cole at 22.7. Do you think there's any limiting factors to him pitching today?
Possibly the weather. I mean, I think that's the biggest concern here is that it looks like it's going to be kind of just shitty weather as far as cold and possibly raining. If you avoid the rain, then I assume the game goes. But I'm not expecting Ohtani to be limited by the Angels through. It's so hard to see what he's done recently in DraftKings game logs. Looks like 107 pitches last time out. Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting him to be limited there. The weather certainly could affect things though. It is kind of nice though. Like at least this game starts at 8:10 Eastern. The Giants game starts at 9:40. The
you can
Mets
swap
game
out if
starts
you
at-
need to.
Yeah, the Mets game starts at 9:40. So you can swap, to Carlos Rodon or Chris Bassett if you have to.
Okay. Yeah, like if the ownership's right, I think he's the best GPP option that you can get to, just because that ceiling is really appealing at 12.5%.
Yeah. So for me, I have him. So out of Cole, Nola, Ohtani, and Carlos Rodon, I have Ohtani being the only one who's not over-owned in terms of optimal percentage versus ownership.
Yeah.
Still just came in right around the field on him, all things considered, though.
Yeah, he's my second most owned pitcher behind Cole. Which I have not looked at my hitting ownership yet, but I got a sneaky suspicion that when I switch this over to Rockies Padres, those guys are going to be showing up in abundance, and Ohtani is the reason that those lineups are popping.
Yeah, so he's my fifth highest owned if the slate started right now, behind Cole, Nola, Rodon, Giolito in that order. And I'm getting around the field on San Diego. I'm not really getting the Colorado. But while you were doing the last promo or last ad read, I was kind of just like looking through to see what my 5-man Padres stacks looked like, and it did seem like there I'm getting Ohtani or I'm getting Singer, or he's useful in those types of lineups.
Sure. Yeah, I'm intrigued by it. It's Cole, slight step back for Ohtani, slight step back for Nola, and then I don't really have anybody that's even in sniffing distance of their exposures. And I'm cool with that. Louis Varland, any hot takes?
Nope, got like 3%. He's another one that we don't have a ton of track record on him. He made 4 starts above Double-A this year. He did make 19 starts, 20 appearances at Double-A through like 105 innings. Strikeout stuff seems decent. The matchup against the Angels, I think, is pretty neutral in that now they do have Trout and Ohtani healthy, so you have to deal with both of those guys. Rengifo and Ward aren't bad. You don't have Jared Walsh striking out 30% of the time. You don't have Joe Adell in the lineup to strike out every time he comes up either. So not as good of a strikeout spot. And like we were saying with Cody Morris, I don't think you really need to get to that ownership range either. But yeah, I mean, I got 4% Morris, I got 3% Varland. To me, they're just they're good value plays, but you probably just don't really need them.
Okay. Let's talk Angels bats, I guess. I don't know. They're always so weird to talk about on an Ohtani pitching day. They're 10th in top stack, unowned in general. Is there something here even without Ohtani?
It's tough for me to want to get too much of it. I got like 3% right now. Mike Trout obviously is great. Rengifo looks good. Ward looks fine. The rest of the order is free, so that's nice. But it's just brutal hitting conditions here. It's supposed to be like 50, 55 degrees, assuming that they're able to play. Not a great spot to be hitting baseballs. And then also you're losing Ohtani out of the stack, so that makes it pretty unappealing as well.
I'm actually getting to a little bit here, like something in the 7% range, which is an unowned Angels team. They are free at the bottom. It's mildly appealing to me. I don't normally get to the Angels on days where Ohtani's not around, but it is happening today. I'll take an unowned Trout today if I can. I mean, this is a place where right-handed power goes to die, but I'll take my chances. There's a lot of lefty bats here. There's some, which, at least Minnesota plays up lefty power. That's all I got. I wouldn't have expected to be here, but apparently I am. Twins against Ohtani seems like a tough sell.
Yeah, really, really tough sell there. Especially, I mean, not that it matters too much for me anyway, but it's not like Otani's getting a lot of ownership, so you don't even get that angle. The Twins are just one of my lowest owned teams if I get to any.
Yeah, the most I got of anybody is 2 shares of Nick Gordon, so that's a no for me.
Yeah, still no Buxton in the lineup either, obviously. Jake Cave batting fifth. Like he runs into enough home runs once in a while at cheap, at cheap prices where like he ends up being a good play, but that's not really somebody that hits fifth in a good lineup.
Anything else in this
somebody
game?
else, but I can't place it.
I have no idea who's on the Twins.
Oh, Correa's not in.
Ah, there you go. Andrew Jennison says, "Sweet, my computer won't power on. How are you here?" Oh yeah, that makes sense. It didn't even cross my mind. All righty, let's do it.
Nick NYC is going to be going back and forth with Sean here with some wild takes. Cole pumped to do well because Judge is going for the home run record. Can't wait to see what Sean follows up with.
I agree, is how he followed up.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, it's just the most meaningless thing I've ever heard. We don't even know if Cole likes Aaron Judge.
Right. And we know nobody ever likes Garrett Cole.
Right. Like, there's a real chance that he doesn't like him at all. From what we know, the best guess is that he's indifferent to him.
Right. Yeah, like Garrett Cole, there's never been anything to suggest Garrett Cole likes anybody except Garrett Cole.
Right. Which makes me like Garrett Cole because I find that incredibly relatable. Oh, man. I might have to get a Garrett Cole jersey at this point. Not a Yankees version, because I would rather just wear like a shirt of bees. But, maybe I can go back and get a Pittsburgh one.
Yeah.
Be a lot more interesting for me. So he's like Josh. Ain't just me on this show, brother. I promise you that.
I love me some me.
For real. 5-run implied total for the Rockies, 6.1 for the Padres. Ryan Feltner and Sean Manaea. Let's start with Manaea. 7,300 here against the Rockies, unowned. Anything here?
For Manaea?
Yeah.
No.
Because I know it's a straight no for Ryan Feltner. But at least Manaea is like a functional pitcher.
Sort of, but no, it's a straight no there for me too. I mean, I got him optimal like 4.5% of the time, so yeah, cool. He's going on their own. He's still wildly unlikely to get there. Like he struggled this year too. I don't really know what to make of him, but 23.3% strikeout percentage, 3.96 xFIP. Those are both fine. 1.76 home runs per 9 innings. His numbers against righties this year, he does have a 25% strikeout percentage, but he's also allowed a 230 ISO, 188 expected ISO. Long story short, yeah, I'm not getting to him in Coors.
Nick, if you post those emojis one more time in one of these chats, we're going to let you get on out of here quick so you can go watch the Yankees game. Let's talk Padres first, I guess. Top stack, 4th in value, which just should not be in this case. And number 1 in ownership at 27.5%. What do you want to do with the Padres, who just have some guys that are in basically everything?
Yeah, I'm getting around the field on them, even though they are popular. Part of it is just that there's not a lot of offenses that I do like on this slate. Part of it is, obviously they are just in a fantastic spot. It's 77 degrees in Colorado, which relative to a lot of other places is actually warm today. They have a 6.1 implied run total. You have some value with, Jurickson and Profar leading off, with Cronenworth at 4,200, with Kim at 42, Myers at 3,200. The bottom of the order is free as well with Nola and Azokar, even though they're not very good. It just looks like a really good spot for the Padres, and it is a big enough slate where it's not that difficult to differentiate. Like I said before, some Ohtani, mix in some Ohtani, mix in some Springs, mix in some Singer, mix in any of these 2% owned secondary stacks, and you're fine there. Feltner so far this season, 177 expected ISO to lefties, 237 to righties, striking out around 20% of hitters. Just not very good, and it sets up as a great spot for the Padres.
I'm actually not getting here as much as I was expecting to. I assumed it was just going to be there because I haven't seen a ton of exposure as we've worked our way through it. But I've got 10% of the Padres. They're a lot more filler. I'm half the field on some of these guys. Do I want to get a little bit more San Diego? Sure. But I mean, we're battling just giant ownership numbers on a 12-game slate. And I think that I'm just going to be getting to more like, just as a guess, Mets, Giants, Dodgers as we move our way along.
I will add that I do not believe they end up being 28% owned.
Okay. There's that. How do you
I
feel?
think it's much more likely to end up around 20.
Okay. I would end up with a little bit more if that reflects in our ownership projections. What about the Rockies side of this one? They were third in top stack and second in ownership the last time I pulled it. Also third in top value. God, I just hate DraftKings for this shit.
Yeah. Well, and the Rockies didn't do them any favors here either with like CJ Cron's banged up, so he's not in the lineup. Yeah. They called up one of their top prospects, one of the top 100 prospects in baseball in Tovar. He, of course, is 2K flat because anybody that plays in the minor leagues is 2K flat. Doesn't matter what sort of prospect you are. He's hitting 8th. Don't sleep on that guy. It does suck that him and Trejo are the same position. But yeah, don't sleep on Tovar. Hitting 8th, 2K flat, has speed, has some power. He's a good prospect. No CJ Cron does make this lineup worse. Jonathan Daza leading off cheap, but also not much power there. Really like Grichuk at 4,100. Montero looks good, but also plays the same position as Manny Machado, so that hurts. Diaz, I think, is your cash game catcher at 3,600 and certainly a good catcher overall. Toglia, switch hitter, first base outfield, still like him, but I'm not getting anywhere near the field on Colorado the way things look right now. That's not me saying I don't like them. It's me saying that I prefer San Diego at current ownership, even compared to Colorado. I'm obviously not going to be playing a lot of them together because that just drives ownership up a lot. So right now I'm getting to the Padres. I'm not getting to the Rockies. Wouldn't fault anyone if you do it differently, but I just think the Rockies are going a little bit more overowned than San Diego is.
It's asinine that the Padres are 3 times as likely to be the top stack here, and they are the same value as the Rockies.
For what it's worth, I have them less than twice as likely.
So do I have it twice. I have it at 15.
I have it about
7. Twice. Yeah, I have it at 15 and 7.
Yeah, I have it at 12 and 7.
Okay. But even still, like, it is insane to me that the Padres can be a good value on this slate. Like, they're just, can we just know that they're going to go to call? Like, we can see the schedule. We don't find out in the morning before, like after salaries came out. It's just, it's so irritating.
Yeah,
it's so irritating.
It's really frustrating because Coors slates used to be fun in that, and I mean, no, what's his name? Neil and I were talking about it the other day. On one hand, I almost said Nolan. I was like, that's not it. No. But like on the one hand, it's kind of fun because like where a lot of ownership is going, and you can get away from it if you want to. But I used to really like the Coors slates where it was like, oh, I can play Garrett Cole or I can play the Padres instead of it just being like, oh, well, I can play both. I just need to make sure I play some low-owned pitcher along with Cole, and I'll be good.
It's just less entertaining as a whole.
Right.
It's not better or worse in terms of like playing DFS. I don't care from that end. It's just unappealing to know that 42% of the ownership is coming into this game from a hitting perspective, and they're all underpriced.
Yeah, to me, it just makes it less fun because like I guess there's the counter argument that like more people can play the Padres and they're likely to have a fun experience and that they see their score go up a lot. But from at least like looking at your
third
teams,
week of September, man, I don't know if we need to bring.
Yeah, I don't know how many of those people are still playing. But like what to me at least when I'm sweating baseball, what's really fun is when your team is doing really well and they're like 3% owned because you're just like, all right, cool. Like there's not a lot of people here. When you're just seeing the Padres at 20% just racking up fantasy points, it's like, okay, well that's better than if they weren't, but it's not really doing anything for me. Like I'm still competing with a million other people. So for me, the entertainment value just goes down.
I guess there's a lot of people with a little bit of extra scratch in their account from NFL weeks 1 and 2. I mean, I assume the answer is that there's also a lot of people that have no money in their account after weeks 1 and 2.
I'm quickly working that way.
Yeah, I gave it a shot on week 2, that's for sure. Adam looks like he's in an episode of Severance.
I have no idea what that even means.
You didn't watch that show?
No.
Adam Scott. It's a good one. So people have this surgery that like splits their brain into basically. So when they show up at work, they have no memories of their life outside of work. and then vice versa. The people outside, like when you're outside of work, you have no idea what happens inside of work.
Okay.
Like you take this elevator and you're just like, and you don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
Christopher
the first thing that
Walken,
came to mind when he said Severance was Bubba Sparks, but that's Deliverance, and not
Deliverance.
Severance. But yeah.
You should watch Severance. It's good.
Yeah. What's it on?
Apple, I believe.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty good. Interesting premise. Cash lineup's probably having 7 people from this lineup or from this game. 8, certainly reasonable, but like 7's probably a minimum.
Yeah, I think so. Pretty much every lineup I'm looking at is 7 or 8, and it kind of just ends up being like, at least for me, are you playing the 2K top prospect on the Mets or the 2K Tovar?
There you go. 3.7 run implied total for the Royals, 3.8 for the Mariners. Brady Singer and Marco Gonzalez. No ownership going to Singer, no ownership going to Gonzalez. If I wanted to get to either side of this, I would probably want a little bit more Singer, but don't think I'm getting to either one of them.
Yeah, not going to get much of either. I kind of already mentioned Singer as one of the guys that you can use to just differentiate, if you're playing Padres stacks or whatever. But yeah, I got like 1%. He happens to be in one of my top ranked Padres stacks that I looked at. He's projected for like 1% ownership. He showed up in the optimal like 7% for me. So going a little bit under owned. You do also not have Julio Rodriguez in the Seattle lineup. So not as dangerous a matchup. I do think there's some upside here for him, but it just still ends up being difficult to get there.
Marco Gonzalez on the opposite side against the Royals?
I didn't get any.
Okay. Do you think you'd be getting a lot more Chris Bubich if it was him instead of Brady Singer?
Probably, yeah.
Figured as much.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk
Singer's like
about...
the only Royals pitcher that I haven't been getting every start this year. Well, him and Greinke.
And he's like the one you should get.
And he's the one that I really wish I would, yeah.
That's because his price is usually like more correct.
Right.
Let's talk about the Royals, who are owned today. It was 7% aggregate on my last poll. That's enough for third, but third is a different story when you're comparing it to Rockies and Padres. Nobody was in double digits on my last run. Are you getting to your Kansas City Royals?
You don't have to ask. Yeah, I am. They came in around like, what'd you say?
I am not.
They came in around like 10% for me. So if the slate started right now, like San Diego is 1, and then it's like Seattle, Kansas City, and Tampa Bay all tied for second. That certainly could change when I rerun everything after this show, but it's just the same as usual. I think the ownership on Kansas City is about where it should be when you factor in the value, when you factor in the MPE that you get. It's like 67 degrees. It's not a good park to hit in. All of that stuff sucks, but it's kind of just the way it is on this slate. Perez and Melendez both look good, both high upside catcher options. Melendez has outfield eligibility as well. Witt gives you a very good third base / shortstop option. He's likely to not get that much ownership either, since you do have Manny Machado and Montero at third base in Coors Field. Pasquantino is still cheap. Gonzalez doesn't do a good job against lefties either, so that's something to note when you talk about Melendez, when you talk about Pasquantino. 185 expected ISO to lefties this year for Gonzalez. So, yeah, it's just another team that I think they deserve the ownership.
You have their optimal close to that 7% mark?
Yep. 5.6.
Wow. Yeah, they did not grade out very well for me. I do not have the Royals, and I do get to them pretty regularly, but that is not going to be the spot today. And I guess I'm burying it because you are also getting to the Mariners.
Yeah, which would not be upset if that changes, because this lineup kind of sucks. But and Brady Singer's good, and this park sucks. I don't really know why I'm getting to the Mariners, to be honest. Like, I have them going a little bit under-owned, but not anything crazy. My guess is just that the positions at the top and the pricing gets me there. Like JP Crawford leading off at 3,200. He's not the best hitter, but that's a really cheap shortstop that looks good enough leading off here. Haniger is good. Santana is really cheap. Ty France has power. Cal Raleigh has power. Jared Kelenic is back. He's hitting 6th. He's 2K flat. So I think it's just probably the value for Seattle is getting me there, because I'm able to get, like, they're not getting ownership. So like they're easy to pair with Cole, Nola. And there is still some upside here, but certainly would not be upset if that Seattle ownership comes down a little bit for me.
So this is your game.
Yeah,
the game that doesn't look all that appealing, but you're getting to.
Yeah, the game with like the 7.5 total in 65-degree weather in an extreme pitcher's park is my game for batters.
Look, somebody's got to have one somewhere. We were talking about it earlier in the show. Like this is what's happening. Teddy Wayman with the super chat. Actually, I missed another super chat earlier, I believe, but it was just Eric with the EMAC 2024 message. I guess he's going to be running with Trump. Nola over under 7.5 strikeouts. Thanks, gentlemen. I got him at 6.5. That helps.
I'll take your word for it.
You should do that more often on these shows. I mean, I'm not excited about that at all. What I would really do is go to Oddshopper and see what's out there. So I'm going to go ahead and pop in the old Aaron Nola name. And we're going to find out that over 7.5 strikeouts at plus 110 is out there. That is a positive 2% expected ROI bet. The hold on that one is pretty high, so I likely wouldn't want to get too close to it. Under 7.5, negative 6% expected ROI. Probably not a bet I'd be trying to attack.
Yeah, I was going to say that to me seemed like a good line.
Yeah. What else? You know what else seems good?
What?
Exactly. The promo code PRIMETIME. If it makes you think of Deion Sanders, I hope it does, because he was awesome. I wish more people got to understand what Deion was. We don't really have that any longer, unfortunately. Dude was just the man.
Washington
so before
Redskins
his time.
great.
Could you imagine him now with like social media and stuff? He'd be bigger than he was even then.
Or he'd be like constantly suspended.
Potentially true.
Yeah.
Use that promo code PRIMETIME if you want to get all of our Stokastic Plus NFL tools for showdown and single game slates for $1. $1 single dollar for all of our showdown and single game stuff. Player and ownership projections, Discord, the lineup builder. There are so many NFL single game slates. You're getting Thursdays and Mondays, and I mean, like for a week, you're going to get 3 of them, I believe, plus I guess individual Sunday stuff. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but that's going to cover you for 3 like huge slates. Thursday night football, Sunday night football, Monday night football. Get in for it, man. $1, you guys can find that in your couch cushions. I don't know if people still lose change in their couch. I would have to have change in my pocket to be able to do that. But wherever change
and we
ends
know
up
you
now,
wouldn't look for it anyway. I mean, what, he's dropping 20s in the couch?
I couldn't even tell you the last time I have handled change. Normally, I just throw it right in the garbage once I get it. I do miss delivering pizzas and having all of the change fall out of my pockets and then going back to my car like every month and just scooping all of it out of the back seat and, turning it in.
Yeah. Finding like old waiters' wallets in my car that I just had tossed in there after a shift and forgotten to take the money out. That was always fun. That's
a good time. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how change doesn't exist. It's like you can't just find a Venmo in your couch.
Right.
All right. A's and Mets. 2.8 run implied total for the A's, 4.3 for the Mets. Cole Irvin and Chris Bassett. Irvin unowned at 6,700 here against the Mets. Bassett 15% owned at 9,500. Cole Irvin probably a little bit underowned, but also irrelevant. Bassett probably appropriately owned, and that's exactly where I have him.
Yeah, I thought I'd get a little bit more Bassett. I'm getting like 8% right now. I wouldn't be upset if that came up a little bit. It is a good spot against Oakland. The price tag on DraftKings is a little bit less than, those top tier guys. He's around Nola, so he works as a pivot there. Nola clearly the better pitcher. Strikeout percentage is about 5 points higher, but a good matchup for Bassett. On FanDuel, he's a little bit more expensive, which drives the ownership down. So, still a quality tournament option there. Just a good pitcher, not quite as good as the other top-tier pitchers on this slate in terms of talent, but has one of the better matchups. You're talking about Ohtani against Minnesota. You're talking about Cole against the Red Sox. They still project better, but, Bassett does have the better matchup here. For Irvin, I don't have any real interest in getting to him. I have like 2% right now. Tough matchup against the Mets. Good park, but not much interest there.
Any interest in the value of the Oakland A's?
I got like 1%.
That's exactly what I have as well. I don't have really any talking points here.
Yeah, I also have 1% of the Mets, which I like the idea of the Mets. I do wish I was getting more of them. They are relatively expensive, but Irvin's had some issues with right-handed power this year. There should be plenty of it in the Mets lineup. 206 expected ISO for Irvin. It's actually like 75 degrees in Oakland too, which is one of the warmer spots on the slate, which is weird. So I like the Mets at low ownership. I'm not really getting there, but they are a spot that I wish I was getting more of.
Who stands out to you?
Assuming Vientos is in the lineup, I think that's a really good value. He's cash game playable potentially. Escobar at 4K looks good. I like Pete Alonso. I like Lindor. I like Kana.
I'm not really getting to anything here. I got 1% on both sides, but Mets were fourth in top stack.
I don't know. They're one of the teams that kind of scares me that I'm not getting to. That isn't owned. Like of the unknown teams, I'm just like, I kind of wish I was getting more Mets.
I think that makes sense. Diamondbacks and Giants. 3.5 run implied total for the Diamondbacks, 4.6 for the Giants. Tommy Henry and Carlos Rodon. No ownership going to Henry. Probably deserves a couple percentage points. Also doesn't really deserve to be talked about. Carlos Rodon, 10,300, third most expensive pitcher on today's slate, 23% owned. To me, seems about right. I'm a little lighter on Rodon just because I'm getting to more Ohtani, but I would have no problem getting to that 23% either.
Yep, I have exactly 23% on Rodon.
There we go. Talk to me about him.
He's just good. He hasn't pitched in like 9 or 10 days, but it wasn't a real injury. It was a blister and a cracked nail on his pitching hand. So I assume as long as he doesn't reopen a blister during the start, he should be fine. I don't think there's any reason that he'd be limited outside of that. And he is just getting, a little bit less ownership, or basically half the ownership of Cole and Nola. He doesn't project as well as those guys for me, but still gives you that similar range of outcomes. He has the second highest non-Andrew Heaney strikeout percentage on the slate at 32.8%, 2.95 xFIP. Another just kind of mediocre matchup against the Diamondbacks. Not a great strikeout spot, average-ish offense, but just I think a high upside pitcher.
I popped a blister while pitching once, but it was the last pitch that I threw, and it was the last pitch that I was going to throw. Didn't even know it popped. Looked down. It was just a colorful array all over my hand. I was like, oh, I'm out anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to do this.
I used to get blisters really easily. It was really annoying.
The tip of my middle finger just would split all the time.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about Tommy Henry. I think we do need to talk about the Giants, who were second in our top stack tool and fourth in ownership. Is this a spot you're getting to?
I thought I'd get a little bit more. I only got to about 2%. You do run into the issue with the Giants. We talk about it all the time. They're facing a lefty. They're going to run a right-handed heavy lineup out there. Then you're going to have to deal with some pinch hitters. But there is value here as well. Like Austin Slater's likely to be pinch hit for at some point, but he's also leading off at 3,100. Flores should be fine. Yastrzemski should be fine. Longoria's probably fine. Davis may or may not get pinch hit for. Crawford's fine. VR's probably fine. Wins and Gonzalez should be fine. So, the big concerns, I think, would be Slater and possibly Davis as far as pinch hit goes. But they're both really cheap and in a good spot as well. Henry hasn't been good in the majors so far. He's allowed a 181 expected ISO to righties with just a 16% strikeout percentage. So I do think the Giants are going a little bit over-owned, and that's probably why I didn't really get to much of them. But they do look like one of the better offenses in terms of top stack percentage for me.
Another gem out of Sean V here. Pulled Rodon early the last two starts. May be true for the most recent start, 71 pitches. 2 starts ago, threw 96 pitches, which just happens to be his average start for the entire season.
He also had a blister.
It's crazy how that works. But even if he didn't, even if they did pull him early in the last one, they didn't pull him early in the second one.
Yeah, no. 96 pitches, 5 1/3 innings. That's the other thing. I mentioned it on shows before, but anytime you see a pitcher go like X number of innings plus, it wasn't that he was pulled because of pitch count. Typically it's that he got into trouble and got taken out.
There is no situation where they're sending Carlos Rodon out to pitch the 6th inning. He gets 1 out and then they take him out for pitch count. He's never going back out there for that.
Right. Yeah. Last start left with after 71 pitches due to a blister and cracked nail.
This guy, man, it's incredible how awful he is. Phil wants to know favorite leverage stack against a high owned pitcher. To me, that's got to be the Tigers.
I mean, it's tough for me to answer.
Favorite's relative. Favorite is relative there.
I'm not really playing them, but I guess the Tigers. So basically, if you're just asking, do I want to get to the Red Sox, the Tigers, or the Braves? If the slate started right now, I would have no Atlanta. I would have 2% Detroit, and I would have no Boston. So I guess my answer is Detroit.
Still on this Diamondbacks Giants game. Do you like the Diamondbacks at all?
No. I mean, I'm getting like 2%, so I'm around the field, but no.
That's exactly what I have as well. And now we close it out. 4.5 run implied total for the Dodgers, 3.5 for the Cardinals. Andrew Heaney and Jose Quintana. Quintana unowned, Heaney unowned. You doing anything here with the pitching?
No, I'm not getting to either one. I've referenced it a couple of times on the slate. Heaney leads the slate with a 35%. A 35.7% strikeout percentage. The reason that I'm not really interested, well, two reasons I'm not really interested in him. One, it's just a tough matchup against St. Louis. But two, he's on a Dodgers team that has nothing to play for. 65 pitches last time out, 74 the start before that. Maybe this is who Sean V was thinking of when he said Rodon had been pulled early, a couple starts in a row. But we've pretty much seen that be the case with the Dodgers for a while now. And Heaney's not cheap. 9,700 with it would be different if like you just had Aaron Nola and then none of these other pitchers or something like that. You could certainly make the case where you go to Heaney, hope that he just dominates for 5 innings, Nola's mediocre, and you win with Heaney. But when you have Ohtani, when you have Cole, when you have Nola, you have Bassett, you have Carlos Rodon, amongst all of the other pitchers on the slate, it's just so difficult for Heaney to like actually come out ahead of all of those guys.
I mean, I have him projected very poorly in this spot. I don't have any interest in him whatsoever.
I mean, I've got 17 DraftKings points, so I have him as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have him as the 7th highest scoring pitcher on the slate. It's just that he's the lowest projected of everybody around him, and he's expensive.
I have him well lower than that number, but that's fine with me because it's allowing me to get to the Cardinals, 8th in top stack, 18th in ownership. I'm going St. Louis today at no ownership.
I like it. I'm getting more than the field. I don't have a ton, but I have like 4%. Heaney is good. Heaney has also had plenty of home run issues throughout his career. This year, 170 expected ISO to righties, 243 actual ISO. Just a ton of power in the Cardinals lineup. I'm with you. I like the idea of getting to St. Louis, even though I do think Heaney's good.
I got him in 15% of my lineups. This is just an unowned spot for a team that I kind of like. I'm in. Team Cardinals.
Steve Cummings asked if the White Sox are still fighting for a spot. Yeah, sort of.
Okay.
They are not eliminated from the wild card.
What do you want to do with the Dodgers bats here against Quintana?
They're expensive, so I think they're pretty difficult to get to. I am getting like 3% right now, so a little bit under the field on them. I think Quintana is just an average-ish pitcher. Only a 129 expected ISO to righties this year. Only a 17.8% strikeout percentage. More than happy with whatever Dodgers I get to, but they are pretty expensive. They are getting some ownership, so they're not really standing out to me from a tournament standpoint.
I have no idea how to say this person's name. We're going to go with LChe420 with an exclamation point with the super chat, so thank you for that. Favorite starting pitcher on FanDuel for a 100-person field single entry?
Probably Garrett Cole. I mean, like it's going to depend on what else you're doing with your lineup, but yeah, like so.
Cole feels like the most likely scenario.
Yeah, we have Ohtani slightly higher in top pitcher percentage, which surprises me because he's not projected as well. So yeah, I mean, for me, as long as you're doing, it kind of depends what you're doing with your bats. If you're playing a non-popular stack, then I think it's Garrett Cole. If you're playing a popular stack, then if the weather cooperates, I think Ohtani makes sense. If you can afford him, Rodon would make sense as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. Anything else we need to touch on here?
I don't think so. This is like a really wide open slate outside of Coors.
All right, sum it up quickly. Favorite stacks?
San Diego. Favorite stacks to play, or like Colorado is up there, but I'm not really getting to them. Similarly, I don't like Seattle, but I am getting to them. I like the idea of getting to Baltimore. I have some interest in Kansas City, which shouldn't surprise anybody. Tampa Bay is looking pretty good. I'm not getting to the Yankees right now, but I do like the Yankees.
Favorite pitchers?
Cole, Nola, Rodon, Giolito, Ohtani.
There we go, everybody. Thank you for being here. 600 people. Hit the like button, but don't go anywhere. Stay right here on this stream, live before lock. Coming up next. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Adam and I will not talk to you together on Sunday morning. We're on different shows, but we'll see you guys on Sunday morning.
Greg Ehrenberg from Oddshopper here to bring you the best MLB bets for Friday to bring us into the weekend. So do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then leave a comment below and let me know whatever it is that you guys are betting on today or any comments or thoughts you have at all on tonight's baseball slate. And we had a couple of nice comments yesterday. One from our guy, Z Money. He said that he had tailed the Matt Manning over 3.5 strikeouts prop from a couple days ago. That's one of the biggest money makers that we've had over the last month or so. Matt Manning, he's hitting the over on his strikeouts prop in like 80% of his starts, and it's never getting adjusted. So good to see people are riding and betting Matt Manning overs. And then also, Matt Messing, he bet the Cleveland Guardians as the first half winner in yesterday's game. They cruised to a victory in yesterday's contest, and the Guardians, they've been one of the hotter teams in baseball over the last month and a half or so. So good cash there from Matt as well. To recap the bets that we had on the channel yesterday, went 2-1 on baseball bets. The football bets were really annoying, particularly because I had a Kenny Pickett under, and so I have under 2.5 receptions for Kenny Pickett. He has 2 receptions going into the final drive of the game. And if you guys saw also one of the catches, he had one of the more ridiculous catches that I had ever seen. So that's getting him at 2 catches. And then he gets his 3rd catch with about a minute left in the game in garbage time. So that was fairly annoying. From a baseball bet standpoint, we did go 2-1 on those bets. The one losing bet was Josh Widner under 3.5 strikeouts. He pitched really well and finished with 5. And then we had Johnny Cueto over 2.5 strikeouts. He hit that over. It was just such a low number. It was going to be really difficult for Cueto to not cash the over there. Not sure why that line was set as low as it was. And then finally, Zach Allen over 17.5 outs. He'd only had 1 start in the last 2 months where he hadn't finished at least 6 innings. So another one was just a really curious line. And he cruised even against the Dodgers yesterday. No pitcher in baseball has been hotter than Zach Allen. So that was another winning bet. 2-1 on the baseball bets yesterday. Let's keep it going heading on into the weekend. These are the best MLB bets for the Friday night slate. For the first bet on Friday, I'm looking at under 5.5 strikeouts for Mike Minor, and I just don't think books have adjusted to how poor Mike Minor is pitching this year. 6.06 ERA, 6.18 FIP, and the strikeout rate is down so significantly. 16.7% K rate for Mike Minor, by far the lowest mark of his career.
What's happening, Stokastic baseball fans? My name's Terry McBride. This is Live Before Lock for the baseball slate on Friday. I am wearing pajama pants, and you guys can't tell, so there's that. It's been a lazy kind of day. Went and got myself a haircut, walked the dog, came back, put on some pajama pants, getting ready to be nice and lazy all evening. Watch some baseball, hopefully watch Aaron Judge hit his record-tying home run. I'm here with my buddy Gundacker. We're going to talk through this entire Major League Baseball slate. Gun, how you doing?
Your pants are optional, right? Because
hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's PJ pants like as an upgrade from just the nothing that I'm.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, please come on. This is an internet show. Not supposed to wear pants. What's going on, man? How's your week going? How's your day going? Have you been up for a while? Have you gotten a chance to absorb this slate? Any thoughts? Where are we at?
Yeah, I guess I got up at 3 p.m. Snoozed a couple times, so hour and a half.
Solid.
Just had a Mama Cobb bowl. It's pretty good. Now my energy's up. Got my caffeine going, and most of the lineups are out, so that's good. And it looks like a fun slate. And yeah, hopefully we get some magic in Yankee Stadium tonight. If Rich Hill throws strikes to Aaron Judge.
Put one of those in the strike zone, and I think we've got it tonight. That's an ideal kind of a spot for it. Ideal kind of a matchup. Of course, I've got tickets for tomorrow afternoon's game. So if Judgy wants to hold off for a day, maybe hit a couple doubles, knock in a few runs for us DFS players.
So
hold off, hit one in the first inning tomorrow, so I can be like in and out.
I've been seeing this hypothetical everywhere. If you're going to be there and you catch the ball, what are you doing? Are you holding it hostage? Do you have moderate demand? Do you give it back?
If I catch the ball, something's gone completely haywire with the rules of baseball based on the seasons. But in the hypothetical, yeah, I think I'm in it for, the money. Aaron Judge has plenty of money, or will. Actually, you know what? I'm going to hold it hostage. If he wants it, he better re-sign with fucking Yankees. Let's put it that way.
That's the only thing that I was thinking.
That's one starting point for the negotiation. We can start there, Aaron, and we'll add on a little bit to that. But yeah, it doesn't have to be financial in nature, but if I can get that out of it, I'm there. But yeah, hopefully that's on board tonight. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. We've got weather tonight. We've got a Coors Field game going on tonight. it's a weird kind of a pitching slate. We've got some like top end aces, and then we've got kind of a flat middle. Like I don't see much of a middle before everything just kind of drops off. So maybe you're seeing a little different. I'm curious to get your take on pitching, but let's take a look, see who we're brought to you by. I should have probably checked that. We're brought to you by Oddshopper. That's right, 2 S's in the middle. If you're typing the word odds and shopper into your browser, or if you're going over to Stokastic, you're there already checking out all the different content. Go up to the top. There's a little tab that'll take you right over to Oddshopper. If you're at Stokastic, you can click over to the MLB Top Stacks. That's free today. So free premium tools and data. You can always check that out. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Helps us out a great deal. You keep up with all the DFS offers, giveaways, all that good stuff. Hit the notification button so that you get all the alerts when these shows go live. Today's the last show of the day, but like I was saying in chat, they had a great show today for On the Contrary for NFL. I love starting my week with that. I don't do really that much research before Friday, except for like the Thursday game. Go back after this. Start your week with On the Contrary. Work your way back to Tuesday's shows, and then by the time you know it, it'll be Saturday morning, Sunday, and you'll be rocking and rolling for Sunday's slate. You're still playing MLB DFS if you're here too. So we've got free tools and content. Everything is free for the night slates on DraftKings the rest of the year. 100% free over at the site. Top stacks, ownership, all those different things. Click the DK Night Owl link below to check that out for tools and projections for tonight. And hit the thumbs up for Gundacker for sitting here and listening to all that ranting and raving while I'm taking care of business here. He's just been sitting there waiting to talk, waiting for me to take a breath. I'm not going to let him do it. I'm just going to keep talking all show. What do you think, Gun?
Hey, this worst ways to make money, man. I don't know.
That's it. You know, sometimes we got to pimp these things out, but yeah, Oddshopper's the sponsor today, and go check them out. We'll talk about them a little bit more later on. Gun, what are your overarching thoughts about this slate? Like, what are you seeing? I assume we're seeing the top couple guys as, you know, kind of the same way pitching wise, but what are you seeing? Any worries about that rain situation for starters? I'm sure a lot of people are worried about that.
Yeah, Shohei Ohtani, definitely one of the pitchers with the highest ceilings on the slate. Looks like the weather looks a little bit more I don't know, less bad words. I'm trying to one up Josh on the English department. So like that's a sign in the right direction. If you want to get to some Ohtani, it is bad hitting weather, which means good pitching weather, very cold, a little bit wet. But that'd be the main spot of interest. But the thing is, even if we lose Ohtani, we have plenty of pivot points throughout the day and just alternatives tonight. It's not like one of these shallow pitching pools that we've had the last couple of nights, especially 2 nights ago, was horrendous. So it's like if Ohtani's median range of outcomes is similar to a couple other guys, then we don't lose much, but definitely keep an eye on that weather. Otherwise, it's another Coors field is too cheap, but just as an exercise, after uploading projections, I went to Fantasy Cruncher. I logged Garrett Cole and Lucas Giolito and hit Crunch, and I got a 5-man Padres stack with Machado Soto. That's what kind of slate it is. It's you can play anybody.
That's just dumb. I mean, come on. They were saying it on the last show, and I totally agree with those guys. I mean, it's gotten stupid with some of these slates, with some of this pricing, particularly around Coors Field. But there's a lot of spots just all year long that have been so soft. So that'll be fun. Is that something? Let's start there as just kind of a general talk around it. It's the big meatball hanging out on the slate before we get into the pitching. How much of Coors Field are you going to on both sides? Is the Padres going to be like one of the lead stacks for you? How much are you getting to the Rockies behind them?
So I had Padres right now at 16% for me personally, versus the ownership projections. I'm coming in under pretty aggressively. And then with the Rockies, I'm at 10%. So I'm okay with those numbers. And then I just expect to have a lot of one-offs and double or handcuffs falling into my other stack. So I'm biting the bullet. I'm not going to overthink it. It's a big enough slate to where lineup uniqueness is not as much of a challenge because of how I could just sprinkle in some lower owned stacks. But I'm definitely not at that. What do we have? 26% last time I looked. I'm 10% lower than that number.
Okay. And I think that's a nice target spot. Like, I mean, it's something we've talked about all throughout the entire season with these various Coors slates. And when they're going over and it's aggressively over into the mid-20s ownership share wise, I just don't like to get that exposed to some of these teams, particularly on a big slate like this, when there are some soft looking spots too. Like just looking at the DK board, the Mets sitting 4th on that board behind the 2 Coors teams and the San Francisco Giants going up against Cole Irvin. Yeah, it's in Oakland, not the greatest park, but I mean, 1.8% ownership share for that Mets lineup against that pitcher. That seems light. There's a lot of spots like that I'm curious about tonight and I want to poke around with. So we need to pull those shares from somewhere. For me, that's going to be from Coors. I will have some on both sides, but it's a night where I don't really want to get overextended to it. An interesting lineup just dropped. I'm not sure if you spotted it. We're going to jump around a little bit tonight. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot of pitching stuff. Some of it's really obvious. So we have a two-hitter, Mr. Albert Pujols, hitting second for 2,900 on the DK slate, 2,900 on the FanDuel slate. Not really getting much ownership against the lefty. And he has just been absolutely obliterating left-handed pitching all season. So I think, does that pique your interest in Albert Pujols? And what are you doing with the card stack in general? They're kind of light owned against a pitcher in Heaney, who has a premium strikeout rate, but is a guy who over the years we've seen, certainly a gettable pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, the Blake Snell scars are still real fresh. But I love the Cardinals against left-handed pitchers, no matter who they are. Heaney has been insane with the K rate this year, but he still has a 51% fly ball rate. So when they do make contact, a team like the Cardinals normally doesn't strike out a lot. So I like them a lot. What are we looking at? 128 WRC plus against lefties on the year, just insane numbers. And then Albert Pujols batting second. I don't think he's batted in the top three all year. So that's an extra implied at bat. They're trying to get him close to 700. So I'll have a little fun with that. He's really cheap on both sides. Hard to ever justify him over Goldie, who's batting right behind him. But hey, there's some protection for you.
Yeah, and we do get the benefit on FanDuel. Of course, you can put both of them into your lineup, and that is a nice differentiator that I've gone to a lot, particularly against left-handed pitching the second half of the season, where Albert's just been murdering the ball. Overall for the season, Albert's up to 19 homers. He's sitting at a 247 ISO, a 137 WRC plus, 47.1% hard hit, 10.8% barrels, and 324 plate appearances. It's a nice little half season, most of it against left-handed pitching. But, I mean, you can't argue with the Hall of Famer here, so I'm definitely going to be playing that spot. How much you going to Heaney on the other side? Because he's not really getting ownership for where his strikeout rate is, but I think it's justifiable given how good the Cards are against lefties. But to your point, we just saw Blake Snell go out there and completely defy that. I was full fade Blake Snell that night and loaded up on Cards. So what are you doing with Heaney on the other side?
So at that price point, I've been just kind of extra cautious with Dodgers. This is a team that has absolutely nothing to play for. I think they're pushing a 10-game lead on the 1 seed, and of course they've locked up the division. So I don't expect Dave Roberts to push anyone in the last 3 Heaney starts, really 4. He hasn't seen the 6th inning. So on FanDuel, that's kind of I need that quality start shot. But the strikeouts have been there. If you think 9,700 bleeds into a 20-pointer. It's possible against the Cardinals. Just the law of averages. I'm not excited to pitch against the Cardinals, and it would be like I full faded Snell that night as my stance. Same. It would be like the gods laughing at me if I full fade Snell and then play Heaney, knowing our history with Heaney, and he gets absolutely shellacked. So I'm gonna go ahead and sit this one out and just kind of point to Dave Roberts not giving these guys long leashes as the justification.
Yeah, I think that's totally legitimate, totally fair. And like we've both hinted at, we've seen this pitcher got in the past. 129 and 2/3 just last year, 4.12 xFIP, nice and respectable, 26.9% strikeout rate, very good, but significantly lower than what he's doing this year. And he had a 5.20% home run rate in that. So, I mean, that is a gettable pitcher for power. So it's a tricky spot. And yeah, I'm with you. I think I'm going to be right in that damned if you do, damned if you don't spot. And I'm going to probably be on the exact same side of it. Lesson not learned from the Blake Snell situation the other day. Outside of this situation, where else should we go? Who's interesting to you? Who's at the top of the board pitcher wise for you?
Garrett Cole, man. It's a cold world.
Because he's excited for Aaron Judge to hit his 61st home run, right? That's the only reason.
Clearly, no. I would say I know Adam and Josh probably don't watch a lot of Yankee games, but you'd be surprised how active Garrett Cole is in that dugout. I think he was the first guy off the field when Stanton walked off the other night. I mean, he was elated, excited. So Garrett Cole has more personality than I think the historical thought of Garrett Cole.
I think a little better teammate maybe than his reputation, or maybe you see that, just watching, maybe you see it a little bit more. Like they were showing the other night, he was teaching, I forget who it was, but he was teaching somebody just, hey, I hold my fingers here on the seams and I do this just in like the 7th inning, just when they cut to the dugout. So yeah, you like to see stuff like that. So what are we expecting out of Cole? It's a matchup against the Red Sox, not the softest matchup in the world, but certainly not the hardest matchup in the world this year. Definitely some strikeout spots in there, but a couple guys who can go deep and have gone deep against Cole in the past. We know that he gives up some home runs with his major upside. So what are we thinking of him relative to where the field is? About 42% on the DK slate, about 27 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I was sitting about 35% on FanDuel. Now, I will say my initial crunch was cautious on the Shohei Ohtani situation. And now it's looking a little bit more hopeful for Ohtani. I might get down to like 30%, open up a little bit more for Ohtani. But yeah, I just think Garrett Cole's got one of the largest pitch counts on the slate to work with. Certainly not a warm and fuzzy matchup against guys like Rafi Devers, who has made him pay earlier this year. But the last couple of matchups against Devers, Cole has won the matchup the last 2 games, I believe. So I'm encouraged by that. I would like a little bit of a stronger defense behind him today. Harrison Bader was some great plays in the outfield last night. We're getting back to Aaron Hicks tonight, but for the most part, I mean, the K rate's nuts, and we have him as the highest probability of being a top 2 pitcher on the DraftKings slate. So the best guy on a Friday night with plenty of ways to be unique. I'm always on the board of taking negative leverage at pitchers when I believe in the pitcher. And I think Garrett Cole is one of the best pitchers in the league and one of the best pitchers on the slate. So right now I'm at 30%.
Okay. Yep. Definitely has more than earned that respect and that amount of ownership. I'm probably going to get to him a little bit less. He's projecting slightly behind some of the other options for me, but I do love the spot relative to the 27% ownership. If I end up right around that at like 25%, 20%, I'm probably pretty happy. And I'll just look to spread out amongst some of these other pitchers. But yeah, nothing to argue with 32.6% strikeout rate, one of the higher marks on the board. A spot that I'm very interested in. There's 2 star pitchers ahead of the guy I'll bring up, but I really like the spot for Chris Bassett from the New York Mets out in Oakland, pitching against a nothing team. He's projecting great for me, and it doesn't look like a spot that many people are really flocking to. I'm kind of excited about the upside for Chris Bassett here. Guy who usually pitches pretty deep into a game, 171 innings over 28 starts this year, 23.3% strikeout rate. So he's not a premium strikeout option, but you can certainly find strikeouts against this A's team. And I just think there's so much win upside here for his bats against this pitcher. I think he's got the upside for the quality start on FanDuel, 5.3% owned for 10-5. Am I crazy?
No, I like that a lot. And the FanDuel side of it is probably more justifiable just because you don't get taxed for hits and stuff like that. And you're going to get rewarded for longevity. And Chris Bassett is certainly one of the guys I think most likely to go 6 or 7 innings. And the Mets are still, out there wanting every win matters. So I like that call a lot. And FanDuel would be the site where I have way more of. And right now I do. I think on FanDuel he's my second highest owned pitcher.
Yeah, he's going to be right up there with the aces of this slate for me in terms of ownership, and we'll see how it goes when I drop it into the sort. I'll update everybody as we go through the slate. But what about on DK? He's 9,500, 17.5. Not exactly egregious ownership, but definitely a little bit more popular on the DK slate relative to where we want to be. What are you doing with him over there in the mid-range price?
On FanDuel, he came right below. No, he's right below Giolito for me in terms of my last crunch, but it's not final. I think he's extremely playable over there as well. Definitely half the ownership of Giolito sounds nice. We know, Sean V's Oakland splits, right? We know he could pitch in this park, and it's going to be a great matchup. I'm looking at Tony Kemp, Machine, and Capel as 3 guys who had under 20% K rates, almost no power to speak of. Seth Brown, Dermis Garcia, through and through, just a really good matchup in a good park. So I think he's playable all the way around. I personally have more on FanDuel, but he's one of the 5 guys on DraftKings I'm getting to at above 10% clip.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, I think, to include him at that price on DK. It's arguably a little bit of a discount relative to the other starters at 9,500. And again, I just love the spot. I'm getting a great projection on him. And I totally agree. I like it so much better where I'm actually playing my lineups at 10-5. Yeah, I'm paying more for him, but I don't care because I'm getting that nice ownership offset on FanDuel. So I'll be loading up on him on the blue site. Who is behind Garrett Cole? Who's your actual number 2 overall then across the board? Is it Ohtani, or you brought up Giolito in a great spot against the Tigers? Who's popular? Where are you looking to after Cole?
It was Giolito in last ownerships. But now that we have a bunch like White Sox, Dodgers, and Cardinals, I didn't have those on my last crunch. So now that we have that, I'll be able to adjust a little bit more. And then I might change some thoughts based on your perspective. But Giolito was coming in as my second highest owned guy. And I think that is really just a price play against the Tigers, right? We mentioned Blake Snell the other night, and the same night we saw Jordan Lyles have a literal career game, man. It's just righties in that spot against the Tigers all year long. It's just been really, really good. And I know Giolito just faced the Tigers and didn't even get out of, into the 5th inning, but I think the 90 plus pitches is encouraging. I think the matchup's encouraging. And at that price point on DraftKings, I'm invested. I do think if I had to teeter the seesaw between Giolito and Bassett, it's Giolito on DK for me because of the price, and then Bassett on FanDuel because of him being more likely to go 6+ innings and be eligible for that quality start.
Yeah, I like that call. Giolito coming in at 9,300 on the FanDuel slate, 8.8% owned. So relative to Bassett, still a little bit cheaper, but it's not the same baked in discount for what his quality has been that you're getting at 7,700 on DK. That's arguably too cheap for what his quality has been. I've been pointing at it. I feel like we've talked about this exact spot like 3 or 4 times over the past couple of weeks. These guys just keep running into each other, but it's just still worth repeating. 3.65 xFIP for Giolito this year, 3.75 last year when we were just smashed ourselves over the head to get to him at 7,700 in this spot. So yeah, it seems like a no-brainer spot on the DK slate, and I'm happy to take shares of him at 93 on FanDuel. I'll definitely be getting there. What about Erod on the other side of that one? Not really drawing any attention, only 7,000 on the DK slate, 85 on FanDuel. I'm not sure if I need him there. Hasn't been the, good but unlucky Erod of all. He's just kind of been mediocre this year. Any love for him in this spot against the White Sox team that's kind of underperformed as well?
No. Erod's numbers are they're not fun right now. And the White Sox, if they don't do nothing, they at least are competitive against lefties, I guess, right? 125 WRC plus against lefties. This version of the lineup, not as weak as they can be, right? No Timmy Anderson, guys like that, but there's still enough power with Abreu, AJ Pollock, Andrew Vaughn, even Yasmani Grandal chipping a chair against a lefty. So I didn't find myself getting there. Maybe you have different thoughts. I have such a low swinging strike rate on the season. Like, there's a lot of numbers that I expected progression from, but man, we are 70 innings into the season, man. I'm not feeling great here.
Yeah, I mean, dude took like half the year off for some undisclosed personal reason, came back, hasn't really been pitching like himself. So I feel like there's something going on. I'm not saying he's injured or anything like that, but like clearly not the guy that we've seen in the past. To that point, last year, 3.43 xFIP over 157 2/3. His ERA was 4.74. That's why I say good and unlucky, because he was always just one of these guys who got BABIP to death and just the least lucky pitcher in the league. But to see his swinging strike rate drop from 11.7% to 6.6% is really concerning. And with these numbers, so yeah, no real reason for me as far as Erod goes. So let's talk Ohtani. You've mentioned a couple times you were concerned about the weather. You didn't really have too much of him, but now you're kind of pushing him in. Where do you expect him to fit into this equation around the Bassett's, Rodons, who we'll talk about in a sec, Garrett Cole, et cetera, et cetera?
So I'm if this game, I think what I'll do now is probably push him up to where he's my 3rd highest owned guy. And I might even leave a little extra ownership on him. And then if the game starts looking like it's a Mayday button, we have the ability to get into some Bassett and even some Carlos Rodon that locks after that game. So if it does look a little bit more murky, getting closer to first pitch, there's a panic button. So it's not like a 7:05 game. So I think that's the strategy I'll play here. And I'll probably want him to be one of my top 4, top 3 owned pitchers. And right now we're getting positive leverage on him. 4th highest positive leverage score, since the 22% chance to be the top 2 pitcher on DraftKings, 17% ownership. Because you can get a guy who could be the highest scorer on the slate with positive leverage. I think that's the right play mathematically to grab a hold of, especially in a positive pitching environment because of how ugly the weather is.
Yeah, and you're talking about a guy, a lot of times you can see just bare leverage on a guy who's maybe not a bad pitcher, but a guy who's just, one of those run-of-the-mill pitchers in a really good spot. This is a good leverage situation on potentially one of the best pitchers in the league in terms of strikeout rate, in terms of 2.64 xFIP, doesn't allow very much power. Like this is Shohei Ohtani with that kind of a leverage score. So yeah, 14.3% on DK at 10.8, 10.7% at 10.1 on FanDuel is my last update. They'll probably go up a little bit, but I think it's a spot worth hammering. And you bring up a great point. You'll have an hour and 5 minutes to make any adjustments that you need to if this game does go sideways, and you've got great options that start later to pivot into. So absolutely, I think it makes a ton of sense to load up on Ohtani and just, consider what you make sure that you're free for an hour after the slate locks, I guess is the point. What about Rodon? What are you doing with him? You just mentioned we brought him up relative to these other guys. He's one of the guys in that group for me. Where are you going with him? He's 11,000 on FanDuel at the most expensive pitcher on the slate, 10.3 on DK, right in line with the other guys.
Yeah, I'm in on Rodon. I the strikeout just matchup wise, maybe not enough, not as much strikeout potential in that potential D-backs lineup, but as some of these other spots, there's a couple guys that'll give you 1 in 5: Stone Garrett, Luplo, Alcantara, and Varsho. And there's a lot of guys that be a little bit more scrappy, but that's unconfirmed yet. They could surprise us with their actual lineup. I think Rodon, we got to worry about a blister cracked nail last start. So as long as that doesn't flare up, it's a kind of a quick turnaround. He's the guy that's kind of the odd man out. I don't have none of, but I have he's like my 5th highest owned guy right now, just kind of putting that 10K more so into the Garrett Coles, and then probably the Ohtani. So odd man out, but certainly worth having just because of his ceiling. And then maybe a little bit of emergency in case of emergency, break this Rodon box if we lose Ohtani halfway through the night.
Yeah, and just preparing for that eventuality, trim your Rodon shares just so you've got a place to pivot into, and you're not getting way over on shares of him if you have to make that move, or you're just kind of rostering him how you normally would and putting Ohtani how you normally would, deal with it later.
I think I would go normal here because Rodon is really good, man, really good. So I don't want to be. Because I don't want a case where Ohtani plays and then I'm stuck with little Rodon, right? So I'm just going as is, and then I'll late swap optimize. But we didn't skim over Ohtani, but man, that is not the Twins lineup of last month, right? There's no Buxton, no Correa, no Polanco. It is a much different team today. So it makes it even more appealing to get to Ohtani.
Yeah, that's tough. Just looking at that lineup, I have them, and there's a few small sample guys. There's 3 guys at the back end of the lineup with double-digit plate appearances. So, temper the interpretation here. But even including Luis Arias in the leadoff spot at 7.4% as a strikeout rate, and then Jose Miranda, who's sitting at 18.9, and Gio Urshela, who's 17.3, the average strikeout rate for this lineup is still sitting at 24.7%. That's bananas. There are strikeouts galore in this lineup. Would you take any Twins shares against Ohtani here? Is there any reason to consider that lineup? They're all very low priced.
No, there's not really a checkbox. If Ohtani was the 50-60% owned pitcher of the slate or something like that, maybe I'll take the YOLO shares. But big Friday night Coors Field, and this game is wet and cold. I think they said it was 50 degrees. You're hoping for a 99, you're hoping for the worst case scenario, and then you need them to be optimal versus every other game. So I just don't really see a reason why.
Bigger concern, the weather for Ohtani or the blister finger issue for Rodon potentially just limiting, hey, it's a guy who had just had a blister. We don't want to give him 6 innings. Just for concerns.
I would say probably the blister, but man, he's still dropped 30 against. He's got 27 plays. He's a beast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably the blister. I think it's more so it's such a quick turnaround off of a blister than anything.
That's the thing that lurks in the back of my mind. Like we see that where a guy comes back and then it's up, the blister came back. It's just it's one of those kinds of things. So that's the slight concern. But I don't think it's something where I'm going to do anything with him in my lineups, particularly at 10% on FanDuel. Like that seems probably low even at 11K. He just projects great. What about from the mid-range? Is there anybody that you want to bring up from the mid-range, like the Brady Singers, Jeffrey Springs kind of guys on this slate? Or did we not talk about anybody from the top end that's projecting great for you that we should?
Let's see. We've covered, I guess Nola is an interesting talking point.
That's the other premium guy. Yeah, I knew there was another premium name hiding in here somewhere. He doesn't project great for me. That's why he wasn't like at the top of the board with the other guys. Yeah,
it's the ultimate no middle ground matchup, right? You're either gonna walk away with 30 or get shelled against the Braves, it feels like. And because of that range of outcomes, the fact that there is an upside here, only Rosario sub 20% K rate against righties since the beginning of last year, and it's barely below. There's room for strikeouts, and this is one of the many pitchers that flirts with almost a 30% K rate, 2.8 expected ERA, 2.86 Scherer. No Acuna in the lineup for the Braves, so that's probably a net positive, all things considered. So it's one of those Gundacker spots where I want in on both sides. But if Aaron Nola was the highest scoring pitcher at the end of the night, I don't think anyone's surprised. We have him as the third best chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the slate on the DraftKings side of things. The ownership that I'm looking at next to his name, not what you want. So if
that's the thing that gets me, right? Is the ownership shares, particularly on DK, 41.8%. I get the 9,300. You're kind of baking in the cost of the opponent here, and when you don't have Acuna in the lineup, it's still a very, very good lineup from top to bottom. Aaron Nola's an excellent pitcher, but that much weight going up against this Braves lineup, I don't know that I like that all that much. What are you doing with it, like relative to the field?
He's not going to be that high owned, right? What? That is such a hefty number. Yeah. That is, I don't know if that's sticker shock on Ohtani with the weather, but man, 46%.
Maybe just an overreaction to Acuna being out. We're thinking,
maybe if he hit that number, that would be pretty crazy. If it's that number, then I want out on that guy on a Friday night against the Braves, right? If half the field has exposure to the pitcher against
just
the Atlanta,
complete eject button, or just like
probably at that number. But I feel like I don't believe that. I don't know, man. I don't want to push back too much, but it's certainly an upside spot. But at the very least, I gotta have. So you mentioned stacking Twins against Ohtani, just as a leverage play against a high owned pitcher. I think I would stack the Braves against Nola without a doubt, as a actually talented team in a plus park. We've got them at 0.6% owned. Yeah, 3-4% of the portfolio. Some Brave stacks. Makes more sense.
It makes just too much sense DFS wise, I think, in that spot going up against an excellent pitcher in Aaron Nola. Nobody's taking anything away from him. But if he's pushing that much ownership against his team and they're all going off at 0.5% owned from top to bottom, I just want to be on the other side of it from a DFS perspective. So yeah, you don't expect it to work out all that frequently, but when it does, you are going to be nicely ahead of the field. And you're still, even without Acuna, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in that with above a 10% barrel rate, 3 of whom are above a 12.3%. Same 5 guys have above a 44.4% hard hit rate is the lowest among them. That's Swanson, Harris, Riley, Darno, and Olsen. Olsen and Contreras. It's just a great lineup. So even without Acuna, I think I'm going to want to get to this. What about other stacks like that? Are there other stacks that are standing out to you that maybe going up against a good pitcher, but the field might not be appreciating enough and you're looking to get to, or just other strong Gundacker spots where you want both sides of it?
Just like a stack that could get in against a good pitcher. I guess the Blue Jays is worth mentioning. We've got them at a 3% chance to be in the top stack. Jeffrey Springs is a good pitcher, but they're coming in at 0.5% owned, kind of like the Braves. And the Blue Jays are one of the teams in existence right now that are playing to win because they have a shot at catching the Yankees. And right after this series with the Rays, they play the Yankees for 4 games, I think, or 3 games, I think. So they have reasons to go out there and smack the baseball. And one of the things that Adam mentioned on the deeper dive was that weather is starting to neutralize park factors a little bit, right? So it's not like Tropicana is that much of a degradation from, like, say, Target Field. We love Target Field in the summertime, but today Target Field is really, really cold and ugly. So Blue Jays might be one of those obvious in retrospect teams with as much talent as they have that is drawing virtually no ownership.
And they're a team that we bring up all the time. Them, the Astros, the Braves, some of these other teams that are just one of those spots where they're so loaded lineup wise and talent wise that I just want to go to them pretty much anytime that they're under owned to get, almost regardless of who the pitcher is. So yeah, I'm with you on that call. That's one I definitely want to get to. We'll talk more stacks in a little bit. I've skipped over all the business. We're like halfway through the show. So let me take a quick look here at what I haven't read to you guys yet. And listen up out there, because we've been talking only baseball this whole time. If you like all that baseball stuff and you like our baseball content, why don't you check out all our content? The Platinum plan includes everything, soup to nuts, football, baseball, basketball, all the different tools, all the Discord, the lineup builder, ownership projections, top stacks, et cetera, et cetera. All that's included on the Platinum plan. And you can use promo code MLB Live, all caps, all one word, to go over to the site right now if you're a new member and save 50% off of your first week. You can do that with the Platinum plan. You can do that with an MLB only plan. You can do that with any plan that you want. 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus. Promo code MLB Live, all caps, all one word. No fantasy cruncher with that. You can add it on after the first week is up. It doesn't come with, we can't tie it to that discount week. So that's the one wrinkle, but contact customer support. They'll walk you through the process. It's super easy to add it. And you're going to want to stick around. You're going to want to add it. Oddshopper. Talked about them at the top of the show. It's our great sponsor, our sister site. 2 S's in the middle if you're typing it in. It's linked from this top of Stokastic. It is the place to go if you guys are making sports bets out there. If you're in a legal state for sports betting, jump on to Oddshopper. Check it out. It will tell you where the best bets are. If you've got a bet in mind, it'll tell you the best book to make it at. If you don't have a bet in mind, it'll help you find great bets. It's got it uses the same projections that we use at the site for DFS to create these different options for you and help extrapolate. Boy, I lost myself in this one. It helps extrapolate by showing you the win percentages, the ROIs expected for the different bets. Like I mentioned, it uses the same DFS projections from Stokastic. It's got a parlay builder for optimized parlay builds. It's got an arbitrage tool that identifies risk-free guaranteed profit bets across different sports books. Oddshopper, 2 S's in the middle. Check it out, guys. Guarantee you're going to like it. We'll talk Stokastic Hall of Fame in a little bit, but Gun, did we leave any pitchers on the board that you want to bring up that we haven't talked about? I threw like Brady Singer into the mix just because he was getting some nods in chat earlier. Definitely a good pitcher, but I don't know if I need to go to that level, need to tangle with a semi-talented team like the Mariners today.
I think if we're looking at our chart here, Brady Singer is probably leading the way in terms of makes sense and no one's there. So that sentence you just spoke is probably the thought process of everyone. An 8.6% chance to be in the top 2 pitcher on DraftKings, $8,600. Under 1% owned. So you're getting built in 7 to 8% positive leverage. So I'm with you. I got more respect for the Mariners than most teams. But Brady Singer, hey, good pitchers can defeat good teams. And in this particular spot, I think it's worth having some shares if you're trying to build out a portfolio, especially if you're going to be like me, eat some of that negative leverage on some of the upper echelon pitchers. If you can combine a Garrett Cole or an Aaron Nola, if you like that, 45% ownership with the Brady Singer, in a way, it kind of offsets that, neutralizes a little bit if you're going to get a 1% pitcher, and you're tapping into Singer in his 3.42 Scherer, 24% K rate, and the matchup against the Mariners, not a strikeout privy one, but in Kaufman, maybe that means he can go a little bit deeper, and if he can steal a couple Ks in the bottom of that lineup, that's cool. I don't think you have to get crazy with it, but there's definitely some positive leverage.
And probably at least noteworthy in there that it's the version of the Mariners lineup with no Julio Rodriguez up top too. So their superstar rookie is not in the lineup today. So minor bump to Singer. I'm not going to get tons of them, but I get it. And I get why chat is talking about him a little bit for all the good reasons that you brought up and with his nice numbers to the season. So
a weird quirk about this lineup that they're throwing out is there's only 2 righties and it's all lefties, and Singer actually strikes out lefties was 28%. And even the last 2 years, he struck out lefties at a higher clip than righties. So in terms of ceiling and strikeouts, it's arguably a
Gonna
better
run into
spot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call out. It's not something you would normally think, seeing a lineup like that, you say, oh shit, they got a lot of lefties loaded up against this kid. But yeah, with those reverse splits, that's interesting, and maybe a little bit more upside on the bone there. 8,600, 1.2%, kind of at least belongs in that conversation for some SP2 shares, like you were saying. Anybody else to talk about on the pitching slate? Oh, a guy I wanted to ask about because he's projecting a little bit weird for me, but I don't think I want to use him, is John Gray pitching against the Guardians. I don't see it. I don't like it. I get it. 27.4% strikeout rate, a 3.25 xFIP on the season, but this isn't a team that I like to chase for strikeout upside. What are you seeing with John Gray? Is there any reason to go to him today?
No, I think, even if we're splitting hairs on the matchup and strikeout potential, I think at the very least we could just write him off Friday night and blame it on pitch count because we don't know what it's going to be. 67 pitches in his last start, built up from 45 the start prior. So you feel like on a good day, 80 pitches is a guesstimate. 9K is that, you got to be super efficient against a low strikeout team on an 80 pitch implied, hey, I'm just making that number up.
Yeah. That's a really fair point that makes it all the much harder to be able to find a 6-7 strikeout game, even against a team like this. It's just, he's really going to have to press for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, good. All right. That helps me make sure that I don't have to have John Gray, or at least not too much. Maybe one or two here and there for the tournament. I just hate defying my model completely because it's saying like, hey, even without that many innings, this guy looks all right. Anybody else to throw into the mix from your end, or should we jump over to some bats here?
I know from pitching. Yeah, I'm looking at the bottom. Really not.
Well, top heavy, right?
Yeah, very, very top heavy. But I'd rather this than 2 nights ago where I'm splitting hairs between day 4s and day 5 guys.
Yeah. And it's a day where a day like that, like Jose Urquidy, we could have brought him up on a day like 2 days ago against Baltimore. Maybe Baltimore's been good, but like Urquidy's somewhat serviceable, but I just don't feel like we need to go to somebody like that on this slate. Rich Hill against the Yanks, similar story. Yeah, I don't see much more here. So we talked about a couple bats already, but who's your overall favorite non-Coors stack on this slate?
Just to cap off, Cody Morris would be the weirdest I got at pitcher if I needed to.
Good call out there, yeah.
Non-core stack, or talk about Cody Morris.
Talk about Cody Morris real quick because he's only 54 on DK and he's getting 4.9% ownership. At that price, there's probably a little bit of tournament upside in that kid. So tell us a little bit about Cody Morris first.
Yeah, man, I tell you what, with a guy like Cody Morris at 5K, it'll give you all the money to stack Coors. These kids these days, they're spoiled, Terry. They don't understand the SB2 guys we used to punt to get to Coors Field and an ace. Now you just play everybody. Gosh darn it. Cody Morris, 21 innings in the minors, 39 strikeouts, big strikeout upside, and maybe limited sample size, but even in the 15 innings we've seen in the bigs, 14% swing and strike rate, 22% K rate. Now that is mixed with some uncomfortable numbers like a 1.5 whip, 5.12 expected ERA, and a 13.6% barrel rate, but that's just 15 innings, and a lot of wonkiness happens in small sample size. So there could be regression for strikeouts, but that was there in the minors, and there hopefully is regression or progression, whichever spectrum end you're looking at it from, for the expected ERA and whip and all that stuff to go down if he throws more strikes. So at 5K, there is a potential ceiling there against a Rangers team below average in WRC plus against righties, and enough strikeout potential in that lineup. So if I needed money, and tonight I don't, Cody Morris would be as weird as I got.
Yeah, I think that's a great play if it had been that old school pricing where you do need it, but we don't. And it's a shame because that was kind of a more interesting game, I think. But let's talk stacks. Who are you looking at? Who's your favorite non-core stack? The question I asked before, either site, just in general.
Favorite non-core stack? Oh, man, I never do this, Terry. I never do this, but I think it's the Yankees, man. The stadium has been alive the last couple of nights. They've been putting up touchdowns. It's just been electric. So I like the Yankees a whole lot. I like the fact that I think it mostly you take out Judge and the general ownership goes down. But man, to Carlos Stanton betting second behind Aaron Judge, that's just like pick your battles there, and we're seeing Stanton's back kind of come alive. This 1 through 4, really 1 through 5, I'm in love. Now it definitely falls off a cliff. This isn't the Bader version of the lineup. There's no Rizzo tonight, stuff like that. So I'm able to concentrate a little bit more on the top half. But I'd even leave in a Jose Trevino. But 1 through 5 of the Yankees I love a lot, if I'm being specific. And then other teams, I like the White Sox. We mentioned Erod's swing and strike rate down to 6%. That's like Bartolo Colon levels of swing and miss. Like, you just is not missing bats here. And the White Sox have an ability to put bat on ball, and we're getting them at 2% ownership. So think about the ownership shares of the Yankees: 5%, 2% on the White Sox. I mentioned the Cardinals against lefty, 1% there. That's why it's okay to eat negative leverage if you believe in the pitcher, because you're immediately becoming unique if you're tapping into some of these high upside teams that are just not in Coors Field.
Yep. And I'm with you on the Yanks. They're not like breaking through the top of my model on projection and home run model outside of, the obvious names up at the top. But what I do like is they're extremely cheap. You get multi-position eligibility, like Marwin Gonzalez for dead minimum 2,000. Yeah, he has not been a productive player, but as a part of this stack to make things work, if you need to go there on the FanDuel slate or on the DK slate, again, don't need to go there all that frequently, but if you're paying for top 2 pitchers, premium stack, he's a piece of the puzzle that can make things work. Aaron Hicks, the bottom of the lineup, even less comfortable looking to roster him. He's got a better WRC plus technically than Marwin does, but he's outfield only. So it's, positionally maybe not quite as helpful on DK. Also, Marwin only a first baseman, so a little less enthusiastic about him on DK. But the top end, 1 through 5. And then I think Trevino is a rosterable catcher on the DraftKings slate. I don't really want to go to any Red Sox shares on the other side against Garrett Cole, but we do, from time to time talk about that Garrett Cole accidental home run that he gives up here and there. Any love for the Sox at like no ownership?
Not an onslaught stack, but Rafi Devers is the guy if I had to. But it's just like 5,700 versus everything else on the board, especially where other stuff is. That's crazy. And then Tristan Casas, I think he has 4 hits, 3 of them are homers. Maybe it's more now, but like, wow, this kid is showing some power here. And Garrett Cole, we talk about those random homers. It's always the random rookies, man. The JJ Matievich, I think, from the Astros. Like, I'll never forget his name just because of how random it felt like that bomb was. So there are some definitely
random home run of all time.
There are some definitely big swings here. Verdugo has a good history in Yankee Stadium. So I like that. And then, the Yankees bullpen definitely is working towards getting back to where it was. And they've been hitting bump after bump. And you could argue that if it wasn't for a couple of good plays on defense yesterday, it would have been a longer night for the bullpen here. So they bleed more red than maybe the perception.
Yep, for sure. Definitely has gone from a ultimate strength of this team to kind of a question mark going into the postseason. So we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, it at least makes it somewhat interesting. But ultimately, I'm going to have a bunch of Cole, and I don't really need to tangle with Cole with all these different options on this slate. Team that I brought up earlier that I want to circle back to, going up against the Athletics and Cole Irvin, the New York Mets, not getting any ownership attention up at the top of our board. They're sitting 4th on the DraftKings slate, I think. I haven't reloaded this page, so forgive me if that's changed, but 4th on both sites actually, and just nobody going there. So what's the story with the Mets? Is there a reason not to go to them? Are you seeing it the same way I am? Are you going to Mets here?
I'm on the Mets. I think generally I don't know, the reason would be there's a couple 5K guys and it's Oakland. The stadium itself isn't tops when it comes to hitting environment, but just for hitter versus pitcher, and Cole Irvin is a very hittable pitcher, 4.36 expected ERA, 17% K rate. Maybe not giving up the homers that you would like, 1.2 essentially home run per 9 to both sides of the plate, and in Oakland 0.5 home run per 9. So the ballpark might steal some upside here, but if no one's there, I want to be there.
Yeah, that's just kind of how I'm looking at it. Like, all these guys owned in the 1%. Mark Canha, the highest owned player on the FanDuel slate at 7.9% because he's 2,500, maybe hitting second. Sign me up for some Mets shares here. You've got some multi-position on a guy like Luis Guillorme if he's in the lineup late. You've got the weird, power hitting platoons guys like Darren Ruff in there. There's a lot to like about this Mets lineup with nobody going to it. And Cole Irvin, 17% strikeout rate, certainly allows plenty of balls in play. 3.28% home run rate with a 40% hard hit rate. There's enough premium contact there in my mind to load up on some Mets here. So I'll definitely be grabbing some shares of the Lindors, Pete Alonso's, Brandon Nimmo's of the world. I'll take Nimmo, even lefty if he's in action here. He's a quality correlation play at the very worst. So excited about the Mets spot. Looking at the top of the board, I mean, obviously the Coors spot, we started the show there. Let's circle back for people who weren't watching, about 14 minutes or so to lock. Coors is up at the top of the board with the Padres leading the way by far as the top stack probability, but coming in negatively leveraged, still the highest stack score. So tell the people where you're at on the Padres and then what you're doing with the Rockies on the other side once again.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a crunch right now, and this one I came out with 32% Padres stacks on FanDuel. I'm probably gonna manually make that lower because in perspective, that's just because the projection is so good for the pricing, man. It's so broken. So broken.
It just makes it naturally come up unless you're doing a lot to suppress it, I think.
Yeah, my manual number was going to be 10% below the field, but I also think I'm getting a lot of one-offs as well. But there's just so much I wanted. Like if you took the Padres off the board, even if you just took Coors Field off the board, there's some incredible upside offenses at no ownership. We've already talked about the Yankees and the White Sox, the Blue Jays, the Phillies against Odorizzi at 2% owned. Like I'm in love with that spot at Citizens Bank. So I want to be under the field in the Padres just because there's plenty of alternatives out there if they don't drop 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I'm looking at this Coors slate, and it's a way that we've talked about approaching Coors quite a bit throughout the year. And I think we both agree when they get to spots where they're just coming up naturally and optimizers are going to be owned a lot, and there's other good looking spots on a big slate like this, I'm happy to take those shares and put them elsewhere. And of course, beats me. Like that's the play. You're doing it with eyes open. You're making a conscious decision to approach the slate from a specific angle. And I think that's the right one today. So who are some of those other teams? We've talked about a few teams that are, lurking under the radar. There's other superstar laden teams like the Astros and the Dodgers creeping up toward the top of the board against Dean Kramer and Jose Quintana, respectively. We talked about the Cards against a very respectable lefty and Andrew Heaney. There's just a lot of spots to go. I do really like that Phillies call, 2.9% ownership on the DK slate. Let's zero in on that one a little bit more because I do feel like that's been under discussed today.
The which one?
Or if you had something to drop in there.
Well, I was going to say, so I have first of all, the top stacks tool is free today on Stokastic. Everyone should open it up right now and sort it from ownership share on there's 26% on Padres, 14% on the Rockies, the Giants, 12%. So those are the only 3 stacks that are above 6% in aggregate ownership. It means if you gave the field those 3 teams, 2 of them obviously Coors Field, what can go wrong. The Giants are a platoon heavy risk team anyway, and they're all these teams in good spots. But you're getting every other high octane offense like the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Astros, the Phillies, the White Sox. Man, you're getting all those guys at 6.5, 2%. My goodness, I think I'm working on a 25 max crunch right now, and I think that's my play is leave the field to have those top 3 teams and just give me almost give me the field here at teams that could drop double digits with tons of power. It's just insane the low ownership we're getting on some good teams.
Yeah, right there with you. And I'm actually working on my sort here right now and just trying to make sure I'm getting to enough of these teams that we're actively talking about right now. I hate that. It's the one thing about doing shows. Sometimes we'll be sitting here talking through all this. I'll be like, yeah, I got to get to that. And then I pull up my rosters after the show and it's like, oh shit, I got to like 2 of those and not really where I want to be. So got to make sure on that. A team that's coming up, landing one of the most highly owned teams. And let me see where they're at on our board. Yeah, they're second overall on our board, and we haven't really touched on them all that much. Is the Giants going up against Tommy Henry in Arizona? They're coming up number 2 on our board on both sites in terms of top stack probability. They're drawing some popularity, but it's not crushing. It's not like Coors Field level, but you did bring them up in terms of one of those 3 potential fade teams, I think. Do you like that spot just in a vacuum? Do you think it's a good offensive spot? So talk to me a little bit about the Tommy Henry situation and what you would do with Giants in an ownership vacuum.
Yeah. So if anyone's, I don't think anyone's new to MLB DFS on September 23rd, but those teams are high owned because they're great spots. And the same with the Giants. It's a great spot, but because of the failure rate in baseball being so high, once the ownership gets to a point, specifically on a slate this big, a Friday night Coors Field slate is my favorite holiday. Then I start looking to where can I be different, and it's literally everywhere else. And then I start justifying why to be different. And with the Giants, the why is clearly the risk of platoon pinch hits through and through. I don't know that any team faces lefties more than the Giants because of how often we're dealing with this problem. There's good value just in the vacuum if we're looking at the matchup against Tommy Henry, 1.53 WHIP, 15% K rate, 5.2 expected ERA. Their bullpen, one of the worst bullpen. I think they're bottom 5 in baseball. It's ultimately just a really, really good spot. But if they don't score 2 touchdowns and the Phillies do, then I win. So I like that. But yes, in a vacuum, definitely great spot, even more so on FanDuel.
Outside
I don't know.
Of Coors Field, if I'm trimming my ownership on that San Francisco spot outside of Coors Field, that's the most likely one to burn me, like when I trimmed the Brewers out of my lineups a little bit the other night, right? And then
it's
one went off for 3 home runs.
It's arguably dumber pricing than Coors on FanDuel. The entire Giants team is 2,500 or free. Like it's bad. It's very bad.
No wonder they're coming up so much. I hadn't exactly absorbed that fact until just now. So that explains a whole hell of a lot about why I'm getting to so much Giants. So we've got that trimmed down a little bit and tamed. I got to work on my pitching exposures in these last couple of minutes. Where else are you going in terms of upside for team stacks or just bats that you like individually?
So I think so. I just did a 25 lineup CSV crunch for full faded cores. I think I'll still allow the Sotos and the Machados to be one-offs here and just kind of meet in the middle there. But as far as individual bats today, I guess I'll look at the bomb detector. Ironically, the top guy in the bomb detector was Shohei Ohtani. Can't do that. Can't do that. But with sample size,
they'll fix that.
A lot of the Cardinals at the top. I think that's heavily influenced by Heaney's before this year splits. Judge's at the top. Nate Lowe's up there. A little low sample size on the pitcher. David VR, he's been good for them. Yordan Alvarez, I like that. Yordan Alvarez in that park against at 6,100 on DraftKings certainly could be a guy that flies under the radar because of the price, because it's so much easier to just go get a Soto or Machado or somebody like that. And yeah, we mentioned that we always seem to talk about the Blue Jays and their ownership. I feel like I always have that speech ready for the Astros too. And you put in the Astros in Camden, especially a park that will still reward those lefties like Yordan Alvarez, one of the best power hitters in baseball. I think Alvarez certainly makes a premier one-off option today.
Yeah, anybody who wants to go back over the course of the entire season and just check all those shows, check our numbers on that. I think you and I have just brought up those teams specifically in that instance so many times throughout the season. That's just been one of our consistent talking points. So I'm going to be getting to a decent amount of them. Looks like they're coming up 3rd or 4th, depending on how I decide to sort this in the end. But definitely getting to a good amount of Astros. I like that spot a lot. Let's see. I'll see if anybody else wacky was coming up in my home run. Did you have something to drop in there?
Yeah, Orton's neckbeard says Terry mentioned he's going to Disney with the family. Any tips for being safe in the sun? Don't float in the lake for 4 hours and you'll be all right.
You're asking the wrong crew for tips in the sun, I think. Given the fact that we just ended summer literally like 2 or 3 days ago, and you and I have the same complexion as like a sheet of notebook paper, I'm guessing that we're not the right people to ask that question to. I just turned bright red.
I turn into a ripe tomato.
Yeah, you obviously go a little further and get sunblock. I just don't go into the sun. I walk on the shady side of the street. 5 minutes to go before we lock the slate up. Anything else to talk about here before we kind of punch out here? I'm getting The pods up at the top. Jordan Alvarez 3 on my board in terms of home run upside, and then a lot of pods. Mike Trout sitting there. That's kind of obvious. Nothing great. Oh, Kyle Schwarber from the Phillies that you called out before, sitting in the top 10. So spot I like. Anything else to throw out there to the people? Any questions that you spot? Anybody asking anything interesting in the chat here?
Well, I think we can get to like 230 likes. Hit that thumbs up. Let's going through chat here. Colin Richardson says top 2 pitchers on DraftKings not named Cole or Ohtani. Probably be names like Bassett, Giolito, maybe Nola for me. I'm very interested to see where Nola actually falls. I could be dead wrong on that, and maybe I'll be sad with how little Nola I ended up having.
That's good. Yeah, that's going to be a super interesting spot to just check after this slate goes live, is just where he comes up in ownership. Because I agree with you. I feel like we've maybe got that one a little bit high, but it's going to be interesting and kind of an inflection point for the slate too. And a little bit for me, I've got some Braves, more Braves than Nola, like we talked about for me. But I think, yeah, Bassett is my answer for that. That's like that not ace type pitcher that I'm going to be getting to and getting a lot of. It's going to be Chris Bassett for me.
Yeah.
And let's see here as I wind this down.
Catcher 2,200 and under. We didn't catch that. On DK 2,200 and under catcher. I'm just gonna scroll down here and see who.
Yeah, check that out. I will. I'll mention while you're looking for that anybody who comes in third place or better in a tournament with more than 5,000 entries, that qualifies you for the Stokastic Hall of Fame that we're not going to be able to do the slideshow for today. But congrats to everybody who is in the slideshow, because they've been out there kicking ass with the projections, with the content, with the shows, everything that we do and work hard on behind the scenes for you guys. It's just a great way to get access to all the content over there. If you happen to cash and win with our logo in there, send us a screenshot of that, tweet it to us, because that gets you a free month of platinum behind the scenes. That's pretty damn good. It also gets you shouted out on the shows. It gets you a lot of tweets and a lot of likes and retweets and stuff like that from everybody that you see from the site. So that's always fun stuff as well. But yeah, Gun, did you find a catcher there to answer that question?
It looks like we only have 2 catchers that are under 2,200. It's Wins and Plawecki. I guess Austin Wins has the better matchup and a better bullpen matchup. Flip a coin.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'd take the win side of that one, but boy, you don't really love that 25% hard hit rate, 2.7% barrels, 1 home run in 161 plate appearances, 0.068 ISO. Not exactly a premium type catcher, but if you need the savings, that's on a popular team too. So maybe you make it part of the chalky stack or something. Any thoughts to send the people off to lock with? I'm uploaded here. We got 3 minutes till lock, but I think we're kind of up against it.
Yeah, hopefully we witness history tonight in 2 different games, right? Judge will be done hopefully by the time Pujols starts, and that's fun, man. I was talking about it yesterday. Me and you were live for the Sosa McGuire chase, where it was the front page of newspapers. That's what I was in elementary school and people were talking about. We don't know what we're talking about, but we're talking about it. It's like it really makes me feel like that when I'm seeing channels, cut into these at bats. So it's a beautiful time to be a baseball fan. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I was a little bit older than you for that one. I think we were in college drinking on somebody's porch for that one.
You're not that much older than me, Terry. What? College?
No, yeah, I'm a young pup. I was in like 4th or 5th grade for that.
Oh, okay. Got
what, 98?
Yeah. You had me going for a second, bro.
No, I was definitely in college.
Really? Okay.
I'm 43, brother.
I'm 34. I get.
All right.
That's
that works out about right. About take 10 years off of it. You're in like 8th, 9th grade.
Dude, I was in 4th, 5th grade when that.
Yeah. No, I'm stupid. Yeah, because there's 4 years of high school. Math works. It's math.
What college did you go to?
People are like, it's a big history question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, those guys, I mean, we talked about it the other day. We brought up Barry Bonds in one of the morning shows the other day, and we were talking about all of that stuff. And I agree with Adam. Like, those guys get a bad rap. Those guys absolutely did save baseball. I'm on board with the idea of letting these guys do steroids. We're here to see people perform at the peak of athleticism. I know Neil fought back on that one on that show, saying like, everybody would then have to do steroids, and that is a very fair point. But if we think most of these guys are already doing stuff, maybe let them. I don't know. What do you think is the legit record though? Do you have an asterisk in your head on the Bonds single season home run records or any of those, or are you good with them?
I only acknowledge guys in the Hall of Fame, bro. That's it. No, I'm just kidding. I think the fact that you could have a Yankee record, right? Like, that's huge in itself. If it was nothing else, I know the AL record's at stake as well,
AL
too.
Record as well, yeah.
just for the fact that it's a Yankee record is pretty incredible.
And the top
Steroids
three
don't
will
help.
be Yankees with
Steroids
with
don't
Judgy,
help
Judgy Maris.
they don't help your hand-eye coordination to hit the ball. It may help it go.
That's always been
further,
a lot of people
but
saying it helps
yeah.
with recovery and all of that, and yeah.
Also,
there's
to
all
make
those,
y'all
there's
feel
all those
old.
question marks.
To make y'all feel old, I was born in '98.
Older than I already do.
God damn.
I hate you.
God damn.
And that's how we'll end the show. Tyler was born in 98. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, you guys. We really appreciate everybody hanging around. Good luck tonight. We just hit lock. We're brought to you by Oddshopper, 2 S's in the middle. Make sure you're checking them out when you're making any sports bet. If you're not going there, you're doing yourself a disservice. Come back tomorrow. Don't stick around. It'll be a long night, but come back tomorrow. 11 a.m. College football live before lock with Ben and Makajeski. 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. NFL strategy show with Greg, Neil Orfield, and somebody whose name is cut off on the schedule, but mystery guest. Should be a fun one. And then you and me are back 6 to 7 for MLB live before lock. Hopefully talking about Aaron Judge's 2 home runs. With that, Gun, tell them where they can find it.
Twitter, YouTube /Gundacker.
There we go. We are out of here again. Good luck tonight. Thanks a lot.